I, Hermione, travel through time to Marvel to be the savior. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 376 Iron Man Dance. Iron Man danced gracefully, and he was undoubtedly the most handsome guy in the audience at this moment. Every move was a move that only professional dancers could perform. When Tony Stark danced, he also paid attention to the expressions of people around him. More than 100 beauties were also dancing to the music, until Tony Stark saw the familiar slender figure, Pepper Potts. Compared with the young models, Pepper Potts was tall, but she looked a little thin. There were many people here, and there might be many beautiful reporters. Pepper Potts had to consider saving some face for the boss. But is Tony Stark the kind of person who needs others to save face for him? He came up and grabbed Pepper Potts, and wanted to pull her to dance with him. Pepper Potts felt so awkward. Tony, you are drunk. I will help you go down and rest. Tony put his finger on Pepper's mouth and said, I am not drunk. Do you know how happy I am now? This is the most exciting birthday I have ever had. Shouldn't you celebrate with me? Tony. Pepper was a little angry. At this time, the goddess Hermione, who was sitting in the corner, finally had a system dialog box pop up in front of her. Option 1. The scene is not lively enough. Light a big fire to make the atmosphere explode directly. Complete the task and reward 1 lighter. Option 2. Iron Man danced very well. Pepper was indeed a bit nosy. Use magic to pull her down. Complete the task and reward 1 pair of waterproof gloves. Option 3. The music is a bit low. It has to be deafening. Turn up the music and let the whole villa vibrate. Complete the task and reward 1 out-of-print music album. Goddess Hermione has been traveling through Marvel for so long, and the option task she has waited for is indeed a bit stingy. None of them is what Miss Hermione wants to do after seeing the rewards. Setting fire always feels too much. There is no need to drive Pepper away. Then let's go with option 3. Hermione cast a spell, and the music on the scene immediately soared straight up, rumbling, shaking the beautiful young models on the scene dizzy. Tony Stark was also startled and almost lost his balance. Pepper and Black Widow covered their ears directly. Tony Stark shouted angrily, "Who is it? Who turned up the music so loud? Come out!" Everyone looked at each other in bewilderment. Tony Stark was holding a microphone when he spoke, otherwise his voice would really not be heard under such a loud background of music. Everyone thought someone was going to be unlucky. At the birthday party of Iron Man Tony Stark, suddenly turning up the music so loudly, wasn't it a clear sign of looking for trouble? However, Tony Stark's subsequent 180-degree turn made everyone stunned. Well done. Such exciting music will create a good atmosphere. Come on, let's dance more passionately and enthusiastically. As expected of Tony Stark, his hobbies and tastes are different. Miss Hermione didn't care. She used magic to surround her ears, and even the loudest sound could be filtered to a normal and comfortable range. Congratulations on completing option 3 task, and reward 1 out-of-print music album. Miss Hermione didn't really want it, but the task had to be done. Tony. Pepper couldn't stand it. She brought Black Widow here hoping that Tony Stark could end this farce immediately, but the music got louder instead, and the young models and beauties at the scene were like crazy, dancing with their teeth and claws bared. They are all a bunch of lunatics. Just when Pepper couldn't stop it at all and was in a very bad mood, a familiar face, Colonel James Rhodes, drove over with a gloomy face. Iron Man's beach villa is very huge, but the exciting music coming from there even made the ground outside vibrate, and I don't know how the people inside can bear it. This madman. James Rhodes was still dealing with the military, not knowing how to solve the problem, but Tony Stark was fine. When James Rhodes came in, he was stunned. There were more than 100 young models and beauties. This place was simply a man's paradise. Even if Tony had turned back from his old ways, he was still unrivaled in inviting beauties to the banquet. If Colonel James Rhodes had no pressure, he would definitely join in immediately. In fact, Colonel James Rhodes' dancing was also very charming, but now it was a mess outside. with pressure from all sides. Is it time to dance with beauties now? James Rhodes was a man after all, and he was much more ruthless than Pepper Potts when doing things. He saw Tony Stark in an Iron Man armor, dancing and drinking at the same time. If he made Tony Stark unhappy at this time, he might be beaten up by him. As a colonel, James Rhodes was very smart in avoiding being beaten. He first took advantage of the fact that no one was paying attention and came to Tony Stark's underground laboratory. There was an unpainted Iron Man armor inside. James Rhodes had taken a fancy to it last time, but this Iron Man armor was too expensive and he had never had a chance. Now, looking at Tony Stark who was drunk on it, now the opportunity has come. He is not worthy of being Iron Man. James Rhodes quickly put on this silver-white Iron Man armor. It was the first time to wear it, and he was not very skilled, but Tony Stark's excellent design soon made James Rhodes adapt to it. He came outside and turned off the exciting music directly. At that moment, the whole world seemed to be quiet all of a sudden. Too quiet. Everyone stopped. Tony Stark looked at James Rhodes, who turned off the music with an ugly face and ordered, "Who told you to steal my iron armor? Take it off. You don't deserve it now." "Tony, cheer up." James Rhodes also had his own ideas. He didn't give in to Tony Stark at all. "You're asking for a fight, you brat." Tony Stark smashed the bottle in his hand directly. James Rhodes broke it with one punch. He was wearing a silver-white Iron Man suit now, so it was easy for him to break a bottle. James Rhodes saw the look of Iron Man Tony Stark and knew that he would not give up. A big fight was inevitable. He immediately said to the young models around him, "If you don't want to be hurt, leave quickly." Crash. The beauties who were afraid of death all ran away. "James, I treat you as a friend, and you ruined my birthday party like this." Tony Stark was so angry that his face was crooked. James Rhodes stood on the right side and said, "As a friend, I cannot bear to see you continue to degenerate. The matter of Ivan Vanko has not been completely resolved, and you are now wearing the Iron Man suit, dancing and flirting here. It is really unbearable to watch." Tony Stark was also angry after being accused without reason, and he rushed up to fight with James Rhodes. "I am Iron Man. I can do whatever I want." James Rhodes fought back without showing any weakness, and said, "Tony, you are not a child anymore. The Iron Man suit was indeed invented by you alone, but since Iron Man became a superhero, the image he represents is no longer determined by you alone. Please support my new book. Thank you everyone." Chapter 377 Iron Man vs. War Machine. Colonel James Rhodes was right. It was not that Tony Stark invented the Iron Man armor and he could use it at will. Originally, Iron Man was regarded by the military and the media as a superhero, a mecha suit that saved the world, and a crystallization of high technology and art. But what did Tony Stark do at this moment? If he did not wear the Iron Man armor, it would only represent himself, and he had a birthday party with more than 100 beautiful young models, which would be more acceptable. But he wore the Iron Man armor that has been represented by heroes, posing here, and was photographed by reporters and sent to major newspapers, which is absolutely not allowed. Therefore, Colonel James Rhodes said that Tony Stark was not worthy of being Iron Man. Although it was an angry remark, it was not completely unreasonable. When a hero is not an eternal symbol, but an individual who may be changed at any time and place, it is hard to say that the former dragon-slaying hero will not become a new dragon in the future. Of course, Iron Man is one of the representatives of superheroes, and with the savior goddess Hermione Granger who came through, Tony Stark will definitely not become a dragon. James Rhodes, you've gone too far. Tony Stark began to get really angry. "You ruined my birthday party, drove away the important guests I invited, and now you're wearing the Iron Man armor I designed and made, and you're accusing me as the embodiment of justice? Who do you think you are?" James Rhodes's face was equally ugly. "Tony, do you know that I've been enduring you for a long time? I admit that your talent in designing the Iron Man armor is unmatched, but your bad temper, your self-centered style of doing things, and your complete disregard for other people's feelings. Wake up, Tony. Your friends around you are all crying because of your reckless behavior." Tony Stark turned his head and looked at Pepper Potts beside him. Undoubtedly, the person he cared about most in this world was her. Sure enough, Seeing the mess on the ground, coupled with the recent busy work and exhaustion, she was wiping her tears. Pepper couldn't put on the Iron Man armor designed by Tony Stark like Colonel James Rhodes and fight Tony Stark with real swords and guns. As a woman, she could only swallow her grievances. "Why are you crying?" Tony Stark was very angry. Pepper's crying proved that James Rhodes, the traitor, was right. Tony Stark was angry and said, "James, look at what you did. I must let you go out lying down today." Although Tony Stark was not from the military, his control over the Iron Man armor was obviously much stronger than Colonel James Rhodes. But he was indeed drunk, and his body was not as good as before because of poisoning. When he rushed up and wanted to teach Colonel James Rhodes a lesson, he was unstable and stepped on the glass bottle and slipped directly. "James Rhodes, I will never forgive you." Tony Stark was still shouting after he fell. During this period, Tony Stark was also under great pressure. What could he do? What's wrong with going crazy for the last time in his life? Did he kill anyone or set a fire? Why did they have to care about him even on his last birthday? They could have cared about him, but they also destroyed everything that was carefully arranged. Do you really think that Tony Stark is made of clay and has no temper? Miss Hermione has been watching the show quietly on the side. Since she defined herself as a god, she has been watching coldly from the sidelines when something happened in the human world unless it was a system option task or she really wanted to take care of it. Not participating, not worrying, but also free. At this moment, Colonel James Rhodes and Tony Stark, two Iron Men, were fighting, and the fight was very exciting. The system option finally refused to be lonely and popped up a dialogue box. Option 1. The fight between these two people is not passionate enough. Use magic to ignite their emotions and make them fight more exciting. Completing the task will reward you with basic attribute +1. Option 2. That's enough. Make them quiet down. No one is wrong. It's the world that is wrong. Completing the task will reward you with exclusive attribute, Zunger, +1. Option 3. Just watch the show. Why bother with other people's business? Eat some popcorn and drink some drinks. Completing the task will reward you with exclusive attribute, Leisure, +1. These three options are really interesting. Option 2 is to be a good person, but the reward is Zunger, attribute, which is wrong. Option 3 is comfortable. You don't have to do anything to get rewarded, but the reward is Leisure. It seems that this attribute is useless. The Loki attribute can at least make others pay attention to you. Leisure? Isn't the goddess Hermione leisurely enough now? So option 1 is more practical, referring to the practical reward. As for the task requirement of making trouble, these two have been fighting for a long time, and it doesn't matter if it's more intense. Hermione sat in the corner, so beautiful that no one could notice her. She began to chant a spell, and the violent elements in the air increased, and people's emotions were invisibly mobilized. The sad ones became even sadder. The angry ones became even more angry. James Rhodes and Tony Stark, two people who refused to admit defeat, just happened to have all their emotions detonated. Come on. Let me show you the anger of the real Iron Man. Tony Stark's emotions were aroused, and he directly used a hot weapon, forming a cannon on his palm. I have one too. James Rhodes was not to be outdone. He didn't want to be beaten obediently. Boom. The two palm-hot weapons attacked at the same time, the elements exploded, and in an instant all the glass in the villa building was shattered. The scene was quite exciting. Black Widow was not idle either, and immediately took Pepper to escape from this place. Congratulations on completing the option 1 task. Reward basic attribute +1. The task is completed. It makes people feel happy. It was obviously the explosion caused by the attacks of both sides, and Tony Stark was the first to attack. However, Tony Stark's physical fitness was a little worse, and he drank a lot of wine before the battle. In the end, he fainted. James Rhodes, wearing a silver white steel armor, stood up shakily. It was amazing that with such a strong impact, there was not even a scratch left on the steel. Tony is really a genius. What a pity. He is also a madman. James Rhodes decided to rename this silver white steel armor War Machine. He would wear it and take it back to the military for reporting. As long as he took this armor, Not only would James Rhodes be able to report, but the military pressure Tony Stark faced would also be reduced a lot. After all, this is also a compromise. If Tony Stark insisted on not letting the Iron Man armor be shared with the military, then the military pressure on him would not be reduced, because the military would not allow such a terrifying armor to be completely handed over to a businessman, even if this armor was developed by the businessman Tony Stark. James Rhodes controlled the flight, even though it was his first time, because Tony Stark designed it to be very user-friendly. James Rhodes did not make a fool of himself. He flew straight into the sky and left here. Tony Stark was lying in the ruins alone wearing the Iron Man armor. He didn't know how much time had passed until dawn. Tony Stark just woke up in a daze. Please support my new book. Thank you everyone. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 378 Iron Man and SHIELD. Not only was he dizzy, but he also felt pain all over his body. The luxurious Seaview villa was also blown to pieces. However, money was nothing to Tony Stark, and it was not worth getting angry about it. But James Rhodes' betrayal made him very sad. Forget it. We are all going to die. Why bother so much? Tony Stark looked at the dazzling sunlight. No matter what happened on the Earth, the sun would rise as usual every morning. He had to say that he was too dedicated. Miss Hermione was also very humane. She did not leave all night last night. At this moment, she flew to Tony Stark's side. She was no longer invisible, and she seemed to glow in the sun. She was so beautiful that even the more than 100 young models last night could not compare to the goddess in front of him. How long are you going to lie down? The goddess Hermione spoke. Not only was she as beautiful as a fairy, but her voice was also so beautiful. Tony Stark smiled bitterly and said, "Haven't I been abandoned by you?" What a word. Hermione felt like she was very important. Hermione said, "Who said I abandoned you? Even if I abandoned you, would you just give up?" Tony Stark wanted to ask him how many days he had left to live. As long as God didn't take action, he would probably not see the new sun soon. But after thinking about it, he was too lazy to ask again, mainly because he was tired. If God wanted to say something, Tony Stark didn't need to ask. God would tell him on his own initiative. If she didn't say it, it would be useless even if Tony Stark asked. Hermione seemed to see through Tony Stark's mind, and she said directly, "Do you want to eat a hamburger? Hamburgers are good things." The last time Tony Stark escaped from the dark cave, the first thing he did was to eat 2 hamburgers, the kind that he ate without drinking water. There is nothing more satisfying than being able to eat 2 hamburgers alive, as expected of God. This is a good idea. Tony Stark didn't know whether God knew him too well and comforted him by letting him eat what he wanted before he died, or God had other intentions. God must be full of mystery, otherwise he wouldn't be as simple as God. Tony Stark sorted himself out and climbed out of the waste. He looked at his dilapidated Seaview villa and could only complain, "Let James Rhodes pay for the repairs here." With Colonel James Rhodes' salary, it might take several lifetimes. Let's talk about it later, if he can still live. Reminded by God, Tony Stark immediately drove the Iron Man armor to his favorite hamburger restaurant. There was a particularly eye-catching and iconic sign on the door of this restaurant. Tony Stark bought a hamburger and flew directly to the donut on top and sat down to eat. Not bad, delicious. Although his current situation was very bad, it was already good enough compared to the days when he was captured and kept in the cave without seeing the sun. "God, will you eat the food of us mortals?" Now the only one who could talk to Tony Stark was God. Miss Hermione appeared, floating in the air, holding up the hot hamburger in her hand and said, "I'm eating it." Tony Stark suddenly laughed heartily. "God, the way you eat is so cute, not like a high and mighty god at all." Miss Hermione replied, "I'm not high and mighty." This was the first time Tony Stark communicated with God in such a leisurely way. Tony Stark had seen the power of God, which was incredible. Just when Tony Stark wanted to say something more, he could say anything. However, At this time, God suddenly disappeared, and Tony Stark sighed, ignoring me again. However, the next moment, to his surprise, a black car stopped below, and a burly man wearing an eye patch got out. The other party was very arrogant. As soon as he got out of the car, he greeted Tony Stark. "Come down, let's chat." "Do I know you? You said you want to chat?" Tony Stark didn't intend to give him face because he looked too arrogant. Tony Stark couldn't stand men who were more arrogant than himself. But when a super sexy beauty got out of the car, Tony Stark stopped eating the hamburger immediately. "Natasha?" The sexy beauty was the Black Widow. It seemed that there was a secret between this one-eyed arrogant man and Natasha Romanoff. Although Tony Stark had many shortcomings, he had some advantages, one of which was that he cherished food. He put away the unfinished hamburger first and went downstairs to drink some water before eating it. Now he was really a little anxious. At the same time, Tony Stark also vaguely felt that the savior goddess Hermione suddenly asked him to eat a hamburger, not just to comfort her. Maybe she was hinting something to Tony Stark. So, Tony Stark no longer had any rejection and jumped down. Looking at the sexy Black Widow in front of him, he said humorously, "Shouldn't you be busy working at the company at this time?" The Black Widow was very direct. "Actually, I'm an agent of SHIELD, and this is my boss, Nick Fury." Nick Fury was very arrogant and had a burly figure. He looked like a super fighter. SHIELD. "I've heard of this department. I remember I met one of your agents." Tony Stark was a forgetful person and could not remember the name. "He appeared in Iron Man 1. You should be talking about Phil Coulson. He described you as a great playboy." Nick Fury spoke directly, and it was not strange to beat around the bush at all. Tony Stark raised his eyebrows. "As long as I'm not embarrassed, you will be embarrassed." "Well, I think this evaluation is very pertinent, but I need to emphasize that I am no longer a playboy." Nick Fury, the boss of S.H.I.E.L.D., said without giving any face, "I received intelligence that more than 100 beauties were invited to someone's birthday party last night. I have lived for so long, but I have never had 10 beauties come to celebrate my birthday at the same time. 100 people, that scene is extremely spectacular." Tony Stark can be regarded as the ceiling among playboys. Tony Stark had nothing to say, and any extra explanation seemed a little pale. "Get in the car, let us worry about Iron Man." Seeing that S.H.I.E.L.D., a mysterious organization that Tony Stark did not know much about, seemed to be not very friendly. Tony Stark guessed, "You are not going to arrest me on Trump-tube charges, are you?" "If so, I have to call my lawyer first." Black Widow answered Iron Man's call and said, "Mr. Tony, I am your lawyer now." Tony Stark pretended to be calm and said, "Oh, you are the most beautiful female lawyer I have ever seen. He talks a lot of nonsense." "Is he always like this?" Nick Fury seemed to be a little disgusted with Tony Stark's cleverness and unwise humor. Black Widow finally started to speak for Tony Stark. "Although he is a little mean, he is still a good person." After Tony Stark got in the car, he commented, "I like your later comments, but you said I was mean. By the way, you also have to tell me, when did you become an agent of SHIELD? How come I didn't know about this?" Please support my new book. Thank you everyone. Chapter 379 Iron Man begins to cheer up. "Mr. Tony, it would be strange if you knew everything," Black Widow answered Tony Stark. Tony Stark was speechless. He thought he was smarter than most people, but things didn't go well for him this year. First, Ivan Vanko appeared out of nowhere, someone Tony Stark didn't know, and he couldn't find out even with big data. Now, Natasha Romanoff is also an agent, so is there anyone else around him who is trustworthy? Could it be his bodyguard? No, he wouldn't. Tony Stark was most worried that this group of people would arrest him and put him in jail. Fortunately, they didn't go to jail, but came directly to Tony Stark's dilapidated Seaview villa. Sitting at a dining table near the sea, Tony Stark looked a little uncomfortable and said, "What on earth do you want to do?" One-eyed Nick Fury hinted to the Black Widow beside him, and the Black Widow immediately took out a small box, opened it in front of Tony Stark, and took out a syringe from it. This scene made Tony Stark even more nervous. Would this group of people want to destroy the body? While Tony Stark was still in a daze, the Black Widow directly stabbed Tony's neck with a needle. quickly and accurately. Before Tony Stark could get furious, the Black Widow immediately explained, "This is a special medicine that can delay the poisoning of your body." It turned out that his body could be saved. Tony Stark's eyes lit up and said, "Then give me a few more injections." The Black Widow rolled her eyes. "This injection can only delay the disease, but it can't completely cure it." Black Widow pointed to the place where the arc reactor was placed on Tony Stark's chest and said, "You should know better than me. If you don't solve this problem, your body will not be able to get better." Tony Stark immediately fell silent. In fact, Miss Hermione Granger was right next to him. She was drinking coffee quietly, and no one noticed her. The system option task has not given any prompts yet, so she didn't take any more actions. She just watched the show quietly. One-eyed Nick Fury crossed his hands and said to Tony Stark in a very serious manner, "We also know something about your situation." Tony Stark looked at the beautiful Agent Black Widow next to him. Black Widow had been lurking for a long time. S.H.I.E.L.D. probably knew everything about Tony Stark, except for the God you mentioned. One-eyed Nick Fury's words quickly ignited the atmosphere at the scene, including Black Widow, Iron Man Tony Stark, and Miss Hermione Granger, who was originally drinking coffee quietly. "Although we don't know whether you really saw God or something supernatural really happened around you," One-eyed Nick Fury continued to say seriously, "the key point now is that you must start to save yourself and research new materials to replace the arc reactor." Iron Man secretly sweated. He was afraid that S.H.I.E.L.D. would know the existence of Goddess Hermione. The goddess has always been mysterious. If she knew that it was Iron Man who was not tight-lipped and accidentally revealed her, I wonder if God would blame her. New materials? I have experimented with all the known materials on the periodic table, and I can't do it at all," Tony Stark said desperately. One-eyed Nick Fury said, "Tony Stark, you are protected by God. Your life should not die so easily. Believe in yourself. This world is full of mysteries, and there may be new substances that you have not discovered." One-eyed Nick Fury is the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. He has seen too many magical things in his life. For him, whether Tony Stark can solve the problem is secondary. The most important thing is that he cannot lose confidence in himself. Tony Stark looked at the one-eyed Nick Fury in front of him with complicated eyes. Although he was not good-looking, he was indeed very charming. This also gave Tony Stark some confidence. After hesitating, he said, "I'll think of a way." "We are waiting for your good news. However, in order to prevent you from causing trouble again, we will send an agent to monitor you at all times. You should not appear in the outside world during this period." Tony Stark frowned. "Are you going to put me under house arrest? Are you going to let this sexy beauty accompany me? In fact, it's not impossible for me." Nick Fury seemed to see through Tony Stark's playboy mind. He turned his head and a familiar male agent appeared in front of him. The person who came was Agent Phil Coulson, who appeared in the story of Iron Man 1. "Hello, we meet again." Phil Coulson showed a professional smile. He did not come empty-handed, but brought 2 large boxes, and said to Nick Fury, "I've brought the things you asked me to bring." Nick Fury stood up and said as if he was about to leave, "By the way, Tony Stark, these things are left to you by your father Howard. He loves you very much. I hope you won't let him down." "Love me?" Tony Stark immediately smiled sarcastically and said, "Don't be ridiculous. He only loves his company." Tony Stark seemed to have discovered something and asked in surprise, "How did you get my father's things?" Nick Fury glanced at Agent Phil Coulson and smiled meaningfully. "There are some secrets you shouldn't know now, but there is one thing I can tell you. Your father Howard Stark is one of the founders of SHIELD. Tony Stark was completely stunned. This secret was indeed something Tony Stark had never expected. His father was actually one of the founders of this mysterious organization. After all, how many secrets did his father have to hide from him? Damn it. One-eyed Nick Fury completed his mission, and he drove away with Black Widow. Agent Phil Coulson, who looked kind, was left behind. Agent Phil Coulson did look harmless, but when he saw Tony Stark looking at him, he warned him directly, "I advise you not to have any crooked ideas, otherwise I don't mind putting something on your hands and feet." Tony Stark rolled his eyes and said, "I'm not a prisoner, your department is a little too much." Having said that, Black Widow just gave him a shot in the neck, and he did feel much better. And the words of the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. just now had a greater impact on Tony Stark. Iron Man, maybe he really shouldn't continue to be decadent. Even if he still dies in the end, he wants to die on the laboratory table, not in a broken wine jar. Tony Stark picked up the two big boxes, which contained his father's relics, and he was still very interested. He carried them all to the underground laboratory and began to check them one by one. The arc reactor was originally researched by his father. Since the arc reactor designed by Tony Stark had such a big material defect, his father Howard Stark should have guessed it with his intelligence. Perhaps there would be a solution to this problem in his relics. Tony Stark began to work. He was very serious when he worked. This is also the reason why he became a genius. When he is focused, he can forget about time and space. As the night deepened, Tony Stark did find some of his father's design drawings in many notebooks, but there was no way to improve the materials of the arc reactor. Tony Stark felt a little headache. He rubbed his brows, and suddenly there was a cup of hot coffee in front of him, and it was magically suspended. Chapter 380. Hermione, you have always been by my side. Such a magical scene would certainly surprise outsiders, but Tony Stark was also surprised, but soon understood something. So, God, you have always been by my side. Hermione showed her true form, and the cup of hot coffee was also delivered to Tony Stark. Have a cup before you work. Tony Stark was naturally not polite. This was the coffee brewed by God himself, and it was not so easy for ordinary mortals to taste it. After taking a sip, it was indeed more delicious than ordinary coffee. The taste is very wonderful. The good and the bad can usually be easily distinguished by tasting them a little. It tastes good. Do you have more? Goddess Hermione was not stingy and continued to refill a cup. Thank you. This time Tony Stark did not rush to drink it in one gulp, but first picked it up and smelled it, and then slowly tasted it. After all the hardships, Tony Stark had been so bitter during this period. At this moment, being able to have the goddess brew coffee for him to drink simply sublimated his life. Tony Stark asked, God, have you known all this for a long time? Hermione smiled but said nothing. She also sat on the sofa. She was so beautiful that she looked like a fine work of art. Hermione pointed to the two boxes and said, there should be videotapes in there. Why don't you take them out and have a look? Tony Stark replied, I guess they are all information about my father's life, so I didn't have time to look at them. Now that the goddess mentioned it herself, there must be extremely valuable information in it that Tony Stark has not discovered. With a new direction, Tony Stark immediately cheered up. He quickly turned on the video recorder and started playing it. The videotape was very old, but it was well preserved, and the images in it were relatively clear. Tony Stark began to watch it attentively. First, a man who looked very elegant and charming began to explain the city of tomorrow to the camera, which is now the Stark Expo. At that time, it was still demonstrated on a sand table. If you are a fan of Howard Stark, you will definitely be very excited at this moment, but as the son of this legendary figure, Tony Stark has long been accustomed to it. If it weren't for the goddess reminder just now, Tony Stark probably wouldn't have the patience to watch this segment to the end. While Tony Stark was watching the videotape, a very exciting story was also being played out on the other side. First, Colonel James Rhodes took away another unpainted silver-white Iron Man armor of Iron Man Tony Stark, named it War Machine, and flew back to the military district wearing War Machine. The friends in the military district were all stunned. I didn't expect Colonel James Rhodes to be so awesome that he actually stole one back. After landing from the air, they all surrounded him like a group of ignorant little brothers. James Rhodes was full of pride at this moment. At first, he supported the privatization of the Iron Man armor, which was owned by Tony Stark alone, but now Tony Stark is in such a bad state that he is completely incompetent. Handing it over to the military as a high-tech weapon to protect ordinary people is the best choice. Of course, James Rhodes would not easily hand over the armor to outsiders to control, and he would wear it himself to fight in the future. On the villain's side, two villains colluded with each other. Justin Hammer, as the big boss of Hankomer Advanced Industries, came to the factory where Ivan Vanko worked excitedly today and happily introduced it to Ivan Vanko. "Come and see, my good friend, the little parrot you have been thinking about. It's here." After waiting for so long, he finally sent someone to bring the parrot that Ivan Vanko insisted on from the other side of the ocean. Ivan Vanko was a charming villain. He took off the glasses he wore for work and kept biting a toothpick in his mouth. It seems that his tooth problem is really serious. He was also very happy. In this world, humans are greedy and ugly, and only his own little animals are true love in the world. However, when Ivan Vanko saw the white parrot in the birdcage, his face changed immediately. "This is not my parrot." Justin Hammer saw that he was so easily seen through by the other party, and immediately became impatient. "Isn't this the same parrot as yours? They're both white. Why are you so serious? Look how cute this parrot is. We spent a lot of effort to find this parrot." Ivan Vanko shook his head. "How can it be the same? This is not the one I used to have." Ivan Vanko even suspected that his own parrot was killed by these heartless people on the way because of the long journey, so he found a white parrot that looked the same to try to get away with it. After all, Justin Hammer was the big boss of an arms dealer, and he was angry. "Ivan Vanko, don't be ungrateful. If I can rescue you from the prison, I can send you back in. Understand? Don't mention that bullshit parrot to me anymore. I want the armor now, the same armor as Iron Man." The military needs such armor very much. Although Justin Hammer is not tall, he has a group of strong thugs behind him who are not easy to mess with. A good man will not suffer a loss in front of him. Ivan Vanko decided not to confront Justin Hammer head-on for the time being. In the future, he will let the other party know his true strength. "What are you still in a daze? Take me to see the success of your research during this period." Justin Hammer's nature as a businessman was exposed at this moment. "I provide you with high-quality cooperation conditions because you are valuable. If you can't do it and are worthless, then there is no need for you to exist in this world anymore." No joke. This patch of replica Iron Man armor cost Justin Hammer too much, and there must be no problems. Ivan Vanko was not afraid of Justin Hammer's death threat. He calmly bit his toothpick and led everyone to the new version of the Iron Man armor that he had modified during this period. Justin Hammer almost went crazy after just one look. "No, this is totally wrong. It's completely different from what I want." Justin Hammer climbed up the ladder and directly pulled off the head of the Iron Man armor. It was originally a helmet, and the head could be put down inside. But now it has become a solid, and it looks more like a rectangular camera. "What is this?" "Ivan Vanko, you need to explain it to me. What I need is an Iron Man suit that soldiers can wear." "What is this? Can this human head be put in?" Ivan Vanko looked like a dead pig that was not afraid of boiling water. He bit his toothpick and said, "Why do you have to stick to the low-level version of Iron Man? This is the advanced product, an unmanned combat robot, and its combat firepower is not inferior to Iron Man's suit at all, and it can also make the casualties of soldiers close to zero." It really sounds wonderful, but Justin Hammer was so angry that his veins popped out. He roared, "Ivan Vanko, you have to understand this. We are an arms dealer, and the weapons we develop are to be sold to the military. The military wants cool stuff like Iron Man, not a pile of junk like this." Ivan Vanko calmly picked up the parrot that was not his original one, and smiled. "Believe me, your buyer will like it." It's ironic that the two villains didn't abide by the agreement and brought a parrot with him. The other side is not a good guy either. He asked to develop a wearable battle suit like Iron Man, but he transformed all of them into non-wearable solid robots. Please support my new book. Thank you everyone. Chapter 381 Ivan Vanko's Cursing Parrot. The villains have different intentions. Justin Hammer, the big boss of Hammer Advanced Industries, was about to say a few more words when the phone suddenly rang. Isn't it known that Justin Hammer is angry when the phone calls at this time? Just when Justin Hammer was about to fly into a rage, he was stunned when he saw the caller ID. It was a call from the military district, so he could only suppress his anger, and quickly walked aside and carefully answered the phone. After answering the phone, he returned to his nature and shouted at Ivan Vanko, "You take care of yourself." Justin Hammer still had important things to do and needed to rush to the military base immediately. Now was not the time to stay here and talk to Ivan Vanko. Just as Justin Hammer left with his men in black, Miss Hermione Granger came over as if she was rushing to the scene. There are system tasks here, and as a worker, there is nothing you can do. If there are tasks, you have to work. Ivan Vanko was the only one in the huge industrial area. Just now, facing Justin Hammer shouting, he bit his toothpick and ignored it. Beside him was the white parrot. Although it was not the one he originally adopted, as a villain, he still did not abandon the parrot. Instead, he fed it some food. Then he turned around and continued to concentrate on his work. Miss Hermione appeared invisibly, and a transparent dialog box popped up in front of her. Option 1. What to work. When you have time, you should be wanton and unrestrained. Destroy all the robots improved by Ivan Vanko. Complete the task and reward the exclusive attribute, Destruction, +1. Option 2. Villains also need care. Help Ivan Vanko evolve these robots to be more terrifying. Complete the task and reward the exclusive attribute, Villain, +1. Option 3. Cast a little magic on Ivan Vanko's parrot, so that the parrot can speak fluent human language, and complete the task and reward the exclusive attribute, Magic, +1. At first glance, the rewards for the three options this time seem to be the same. They are all rewards with exclusive attributes, but there are still differences. There are essential differences between Destruction, Villain, and Magic. There are things you need and things you don't want. The first two options are to make a choice for the villain's robot, either to destroy or to help, but Hermione actually doesn't want to do either. The reward for option 3, Magic +1, is quite practical. Hermione didn't hesitate much, raised her arm, and the power of magic flew out immediately, landing on the silly-looking parrot with great accuracy. Stupid, big stupid. You are all stupid. The parrot's tongue is amazing. With the blessing of magic, it can speak fluently, which makes Ivan Vanko stunned. He looked at the parrot in front of him, and it seemed unbelievable. You little thing, why are you still cursing? The parrot was unexpectedly developed by Miss Hermione and became extremely powerful, and directly cursed Ivan Vanko. You are the little thing. Your whole family is little things. It's really weird. Ivan Vanko became interested. Is the parrot just in sense so powerful? It was not Miss Hermione who asked the parrot to curse. She just used magic to make the parrot more talkative according to the task requirements. It seems that the parrot brought by Justin Hammer is not a good bird. It couldn't speak so fluently before. Now that it has the opportunity, it will naturally expose its true nature. But looking at Ivan Vanko's appearance, he was not angry. Instead, he cursed at the cursing parrot. One man and one bird, cursing each other happily. Miss Hermione, as a lady, did not stay where she was to join in the fun. The system prompted the new mission location, which was in the military district. Hermione took out the door key and went directly there. As the big boss of Hankmer Advanced Industries, Justin Hammer behaved very well in front of his subordinates, but it was not the case in front of the powerful military district. He heard the military district's requirements on the phone and came with equipment. Standing in front of Justin Hammer was the military district boss and Colonel James Rhodes. Justin Hammer pointed to the time on his wrist and explained, "I'm not late." Colonel James Rhodes didn't listen to his explanation and asked directly, "Did you bring the weapons?" "Yes, I did." It turned out that after Colonel James Rhodes obtained the silver armor of Iron Man, his philosophy was different from that of Iron Man. As a soldier, armor should be used for fighting, so he immediately communicated with his superiors and decided to upgrade the Iron Man armor. Of course, the core of the Iron Man armor cannot be changed. At present, they do not have any experts in this field, but some weapons can be added to the outside of the Iron Man armor to make the firepower more fierce. As the #1 arms supplier, Justin Hammer's company naturally had to be in place as soon as possible. Miss Hermione sat on the steel beam on the roof, looking at a box of weapons on display below. Pistols, submachine guns, machine guns. These are all conventional hot weapons. Obviously, these weapons did not impress Colonel James Rhodes and his superiors. Justin Hammer saw that the military would not be satisfied unless he took out unconventional weapons, so he began to use his excellent acting skills and excellent eloquence, and took out his weapon at the bottom of the box. A rocket the size of a firecracker. Don't be fooled by its small appearance. Once it is launched, any object that can be seen can be razed to the ground. Since this is the most powerful weapon developed by our company, I will name it ex-wife. Obviously, Colonel James Rhodes and his boss, who had been quietly watching Justin Hammer's performance, finally began to react at this moment. This micro-missile named ex-wife is very creative. I want it. James Rhodes, now as the driver of the war machine, decided to equip this weapon on his Iron Man armor. Listening to Justin Hammer's description, it would be a great pity not to equip such a powerful weapon. Is it this ex-wife? Justin Hammer thought that the colonel had taken a fancy to this ex-wife missile. However, Colonel James Rhodes is not an ordinary person. He continued, yes, I want all of them. He wants to equip all the weapons, so that the war machine can truly have the most ferocious firepower attack range. Okay, great. Justin Hammer had a false alarm. Although the military has only purchased a few weapons, if such a small request cannot be met, then the hundreds of millions of dollars in orders may not be given to Hankmer Advanced Industries. Today's transaction is critical. As long as the buyer is satisfied, everything will be fine. Miss Hermione was watching the show. If she remembered correctly, the ex-wife missile, which was the size of a sniper bullet, would give the enemy an unexpected surprise later. Until Justin Hammer left with satisfaction, Miss Hermione's system pop-up window finally appeared. Option 1. Go down and tell Colonel James Rhodes that the ex-wife missile is a pit, and Hankmer Industries is an arms dealer with no strength at all. Complete the task and reward 1 light bulb. Option 2. Personally take out your own nuclear weapon and give it to Colonel James Rhodes, telling him that this is called a super weapon. Complete the task and you will be rewarded with a rifle. Choice 3. Colonel James Rhodes' boss has a lot of hair. Use magic to make him cooler. Complete the task and you will be rewarded with a bottle of hair loss cream. Please support my new book. Thank you everyone. Chapter 382 Tony Stark's New Discovery. Recalling the bad taste of the system options. At the beginning, the system option seemed to be to give rewards with a green hat. Although Miss Hermione was a little lady that everyone loved, in order to live up to the good intentions of the system reward, it was naturally given to Ron and Harry. Now, the system option has come up with baldness again. Why can't I get over it? Among the 3 options, none of the rewards satisfied Miss Hermione, so naturally I couldn't start with the rewards. Miss Hermione chose to start with the task. In comparison, option 3 is also a little easier, so this is the best. Miss Hermione stated that it was definitely not her bad taste. It was just because this task was relatively simple. Miss Hermione was like the naughty Monkey King in Journey to the West at this moment, blowing a breath of fairy air over, and the magic effect began to take effect. James Rhodes' boss only felt a sudden chill on his head, took off his hat and touched it, and his face suddenly looked super ugly. Bald. It was too sudden, and people were not prepared at all, and they were bald. James Rhodes' boss was so excited that he could no longer care about anything else and left immediately. Colonel James Rhodes did not notice the scene. He was still a little curious. Why did his boss leave without saying a word? Congratulations on completing option 3 task. Reward 1 bottle of hair loss cream, to make others lose their hair and become bald. Hermione only needs 1 magic, and there is no need for things like baldness cream. However, since it is a system reward, Hermione will accept it reluctantly. Iron Man Tony Stark sat on the sofa and watched the videotape left by his father carefully. He hoped to find a way to save himself from it. He thought that God had not left and was always by his side. In fact, God had already gone to the villains to join in the fun. When he came back at this time, Tony Stark just watched the most critical part of the videotape. Tony, my dearest son, I don't know if you can watch what I recorded in the future, but I want to tell you that these are all created by me for you. Tony Stark was stunned when he saw this scene. That man, what nonsense is he talking about? In Tony Stark's memory, his father was busy all day and had no time to accompany him. Tony Stark felt that he was a child without father's love since he was a child, but at this moment, Howard Stark actually said, "Tony, The best creation of my life is you." This sentence directly broke Iron Man's defense. In his life, he was rarely moved by anyone. But Howard Stark, this man, did it. Let a person who has not felt father's love for decades understand what father's love is like a mountain for the first time. It turns out that Howard Stark does not love his children. He just puts too much energy into work, and he just doesn't say it well. With his father's encouragement, Tony Stark immediately became excited, and difficulties would not knock him down. At the same time, Miss Hermione seemed to have returned. She elegantly held the coffee and looked at the TV and said, "Tony, have you noticed that there is something wrong with the map of the Stark Expo?" Tony Stark frowned and replied, "I just noticed it too. I think I need to find the answer." Miss Hermione said, "The map model is in the company." Tony Stark said with an understanding look, "I understand. It seems that I have to go out for a while, but Agent Phil Coulson." Tony Stark thought of the agent who was guarding him upstairs and had a headache. Miss Hermione knew that Phil Coulson had gone to deal with another supernatural incident, the story of the next Marvel movie, and she replied, "Don't worry about him." Tony Stark immediately smiled and said, "I feel relieved with your words." The scene changed, and Tony Stark drove his sports car directly to the company. After finding the clue, he rekindled his hope for life. He didn't know if the omnipotent God was still around, but it didn't matter. He knew that God hadn't given up on him. The so-called giving up is just a self-punishment when people are in despair. As long as there is hope in life, God will appear to help you. The company is now managed by Pepper. On the way, Tony Stark drove a sports car and saw an old man selling strawberries. Tony Stark suddenly wanted to be romantic. He stopped the car to buy a box of strawberries. At this time, Miss Hermione's system gave new options. Option 1. Knock on Tony Stark's head. This careless man. If the strawberries are for Pepper, then there is no need, because the only fruit that Pepper is allergic to is strawberries. Complete the task and reward basic attributes +1. Option 2. Appear and ask Tony Stark to buy one more box. She also wants to eat. Complete the task and reward basic attributes +1. Option 3. I don't need others to buy. I can buy it myself, and I can buy the strawberries with my own money. Completion of the task reward basic attribute +1. The rewards for these three options are actually the same. Hermione hasn't encountered such an option task for a long time. After comprehensive consideration, Hermione still thinks that option 3 is simpler. Miss Hermione left the money and took a box of strawberries directly. The strawberries disappeared strangely under the boss's nose. The boss was very curious about how such a thing could happen. Just when he was about to investigate, the banknotes magically appeared in front of him. It's really strange. The boss didn't think about it anymore and took the money. Miss Hermione, sitting in Tony Stark's sports car, happily ate strawberries. The two came to the company together. Pepper was really busy here. Seeing Tony Stark appear, she didn't give a good face. Tony Stark's unique birthday party left a deep impression on Pepper. "What are you doing here?" Pepper said with a little sarcasm. "Do you want to start being a responsible person and manage the company?" Tony Stark shook his head immediately. No, I don't have time to manage these trivial matters." "Hey, don't be unhappy. Ding ding ding, look what I brought you." When Pepper saw Tony Stark take out the box of strawberries like a treasure, she not only did not show the happy smile that Tony Stark expected to see, but instead had a look of, how to say, constipation? Tony Stark asked in confusion, "Why do you have this expression? Don't you like these strawberries?" Pepper immediately looked into Tony Stark's eyes seriously, as if trying to see his true intention from this, but failed. "Tony Stark is a complete bastard." "Tony, don't you know that I'm allergic to strawberries?" Tony Stark was dumbfounded on the spot. "What the hell? Allergic to strawberries? This, you didn't tell me. How do I know?" Tony Stark was so confused at this moment. "You didn't tell me, so I didn't know." Pepper knew what kind of person Tony Stark was. He was a playboy with so many girlfriends that he couldn't remember their names. It was undoubtedly a luxury to expect him to remember the fruits he was allergic to. The reason why Tony Stark treated Pepper better was because Pepper was worthy of his trust. Tony Stark relied on Pepper to spend a lot of time to help him take care of trivial matters. "Okay, Tony, the farce should end. Can you go home obediently? I'm busy." Pepper left the office. If she looked at Tony Stark for one more time, she would get angry. Chapter 383, Hogwarts Dragon Egg. Tony Stark's depression was all on his face. In his life as a playboy, he rarely put so much thought into treating women. The result, a big embarrassment. Miss Hermione followed. She was certainly not Tony Stark's nanny. At this moment, a dialogue box popped up in front of her. Option 1. Show up and laugh at Tony Stark. He can't be without the important laughter for such a shameful side. Complete the task and reward basic attribute +1. Option 2. Tony Stark needs comfort more than ridicule. Comfort Tony Stark's injured heart with the heart of the Virgin Mary. Complete the task and reward a statue of the Virgin Mary. Option 3. Ignore it. Tony Stark is such a big man. He will handle his own affairs. Complete the task and reward a construction site safety helmet. These three options started to be unfair again. Although they pointed to three directions in a very conventional way, the rewards in the three directions were undoubtedly different. Maximize the benefits. Although Miss Hermione is the savior who traveled through time and space to work, she still has to try her best to get the benefits for herself. You can help others, but the premise is that you should take care of yourself first. So, in Tony Stark's company in a high-rise building, in a spacious office, Tony Stark was getting angry with the automatic rotating ornaments on Pepper's desk like a child. Miss Hermione's beautiful figure, wearing the exquisite school uniform of Hogwarts, is extremely beautiful and dazzling, but her style is a little out of place. The girl's pleasant laughter, undisguised ridicule. This scene should have made people extremely angry. But when Tony Stark saw that it was God, he naturally would not be angry with God. Besides, God is so beautiful, just her beautiful appearance like a fairy makes it difficult for people to get angry with her. In fact, God, you already knew it, right? Tony Stark said depressedly. So, you still want to come and see my joke? Congratulations on completing the option 1 task. Reward basic attribute +1. The task is very simple. Just show up and laugh at Iron Man twice, and you will succeed. Hermione replied, these are just small details in life. If you want to avoid even these trivial things, then do you want to be a god? Tony Stark thought seriously for a while, and he felt that what the goddess said made sense. It is precisely because of the many unsatisfactory and messy things in life that they are mortals. If everything can be satisfactory and any small matter can be easily resolved, then are they still ordinary people? Gods are probably like this. In contrast, the goddess Hermione, who has always been elusive, is indeed like this. Okay, you are right. Tony Stark cheered up and said, I am going to get down to business now. He looked at the Stark Expo model covered with a particularly large piece of cloth in the corner of the office, and started to dismantle it directly. Dismantle it into pieces so that you can take it back for research. Although the goddess said that Agent Phil Coulson, who was guarding her and the Seaview Villa, was busy with other things, Tony Stark couldn't be careless. He couldn't come out for too long, otherwise he would be caught and come out, and he might have to wear handcuffs and ankle chains for the rest of his life. Now Tony Stark has no friends besides God. Of course, he can't force the mysterious organization of S.H.I.E.L.D. at this time. As for God, she will only take action when she is interested. She can't rely on ordinary difficulties at all. Everything depends on herself. Or maybe this is what God wants. Even if Tony Stark is the spokesperson of God, he can't always rely on God to help with everything. Tony Stark packed up and drove his off-road convertible sports car back. When passing by a wide seaside road, the sea breeze and sunshine. In fact, life is still very beautiful. As long as there is hope to survive, Tony Stark will still do his best to survive. In the laboratory below, Tony Stark quickly got into the state. He asked the smart butler to scan the entire Stark Expo model, and then he would analyze and explore it one by one. There are treasures left to him by his genius father Howard Stark. "Old man, what did you leave for me?" Tony Stark thought seriously. Miss Hermione has been in the Marvel world for a long time this time, and it's time to go back to Hogwarts. Hogwarts is different from Marvel. Every time Hermione leaves Hogwarts, she adjusts the time converter to ensure that the time in Hogwarts is the same as when Hermione left. But Marvel is different. The timeline of the Marvel world has not changed. After Miss Hermione left, it continued to operate as usual. After all, she is a savior there, a godlike character. Whether she left or not, no one knows. On the contrary, Hogwarts is different. Miss Hermione has lived here for too long. Even if she disappears for a few days, the whole school knows it. In order to prevent Miss Hermione Granger from always disappearing for no reason, she adjusts the time here every time she goes to Marvel. What happened at Hogwarts? Miss Hermione thought for a moment. Dragon fighting. Harry successfully defeated the ferocious horn-tailed dragon, so tonight is the time to celebrate. Miss Hermione is no longer invisible, but she is in a strange mood, because if she hadn't traveled through Marvel and experienced all kinds of things, then now she should also be happy for Harry, although in fact, Harry was able to defeat the horn-tailed dragon so easily because of her help. Harry's friendly classmates from Gryffindor gathered in the tent and cheered. Although it was a little ironic, when Malfoy led the way to insult Harry Potter, it seemed that the whole world hated Harry at that time. But in fact, it was just an illusion, because the friendly classmates did not participate, and the ones who participated were all unfriendly bad kids. The cheering now is the same. The classmates who hate Harry did not come. In this tent, it gives people the illusion that the whole world is cheering for Harry Potter. The Weasley twins directly picked up one of Harry's thighs and lifted him high. Harry Potter also smiled happily like a warrior returning in glory. "Great, Harry, I knew you wouldn't die. At most, a leg or an arm will be broken. I can't kill you." "Quiet," a student who was interested in the dragon egg said. "Open it, Harry, and look at the clues inside." Harry Potter was holding the golden dragon egg. At this time, he noticed Miss Hermione Granger in the crowd and walked over. "Hermione, without you, I can't get this dragon egg. Let's open it together, okay?" Hermione certainly knew what was inside. She said tactfully, "Harry, don't let everyone misunderstand. The glory at this time belongs only to you." Harry also understood what Miss Hermione meant. During the dragon fight, the person who helped him was invisible. If Miss Hermione admitted it at this moment, it would cause trouble. Harry didn't force it, just keep the gratitude in his heart. Under the expectation of everyone, Harry Potter opened the golden dragon egg. Of course, it was not a real dragon egg, but a clue to the next event of the Triwizard Tournament. But the moment the dragon egg was opened, a noise that made people dizzy and blackened was released fiercely. "Ah, it's so noisy." The students covered their ears in pain. Even the ladies in the mural covered their ears because they felt the noise was unbearable. Harry also felt uncomfortable and could only close his ears quickly. Chapter 384 Harry and Ron reconcile. "What the hell is that? Oh my god, I feel like I was almost killed just now. It's so uncomfortable. Harry, you mustn't open it again." Everyone said they couldn't stand this ghost thing and were no longer interested in it. Harry and Ron were left alone. Hermione said that they should be given space to be alone together. Maybe tonight is the time for them to reconcile. Sure enough, seeing Goddess Hermione walk aside, Ron mustered up his courage. During this period, Hermione, whom Ron liked, had been with Harry. Goddess Hermione never doubted Harry, only Ron was suspicious. "Time will prove something, unless it doesn't want to prove it. I don't think you're crazy enough to sign up by yourself," Ron said a little embarrassedly. Harry also glanced at Miss Hermione. The two boys were used to relying on Miss Hermione. "Have you figured it out? It took you so long to figure it out." "I'm not the only one who thinks so. Everyone is talking about you behind your back," Ron was explaining, and his words were ambiguous, as if he was explaining why he doubted Harry in the first place. It was like explaining that after the dragon fight, many people like Ron agreed with Harry. Harry was relieved a lot, and he replied, "Great, I feel much better. At least I reminded you of the dragon." Ron seemed to be taking credit. Harry didn't think so. The dragon was reminded by Hagrid. "No, it was me," Ron said seriously. "Don't you remember? I asked Hermione to tell you that Seamus told me that Parvati heard from Dean that Hagrid was looking for you. In fact, Seamus didn't tell me. It was me from beginning to end. I think we will make up, and you will guess that it was me." Ron even felt a little aggrieved when he explained. Who can guess this? It was really inexplicable. Of course, Harry was in a mess and definitely couldn't guess it. "Yeah, this is really, I was so angry at that time," Ron also explained. But even such words were enough to make the two friends who were originally in conflict reconcile. Ron and Harry smiled at each other and saw understanding in each other's eyes. There was no need to add more words. Miss Hermione was also happy for them. In fact, she could have changed these two people, but she was affected by traveling through Marvel. Maybe she really started to become lazy and was unwilling to spend time to solve the problems that could be solved naturally as time passed. Of course, her ultimate goal was to complete the system option tasks and then reap the rewards one by one. Option 1. It is really a time worth celebrating. Harry and Ron's reconciliation. Let's set off some fireworks for them. Complete the task to reward basic attributes +2. Option 2. Reconciliation is too boring. These are all dramas that will only be staged in the finale. Create some conflicts between the two of them. Let them continue the Cold War. Complete the task to reward the exclusive attribute, Bad Girl, +1. Option 3. Just stay where you are and do nothing. Complete the task to reward the exclusive attribute, Calm, +1. The reward for option 2 made Hermione a little surprised. Is Bad Girl also an attribute? But this kind of thing is really bad. It is something that ordinary villains would do. Option 3 is very simple, but the reward is not what Miss Hermione likes. Option 1 is quite generous. As long as you set off fireworks for Harry and Ron, you can gain basic attributes +2. It's quite powerful. I've decided to choose this powerful option. When Harry and Ron were together and didn't know what to say next, after all, when they just reconciled, there were always some things that they were embarrassed to say. Unlike in the original drama and movie, as long as the screen switched, it was the next scene, the next exciting play. Miss Hermione came step by step with lotus flowers. She was so beautiful. In addition to being surrounded by Loki, she actually had special magic blessing. Now Miss Hermione has mastered more advanced magic, which can make herself beautiful while not being noticed too much by outsiders. So now she doesn't need to add points to Loki, but there is still a difference. Loki is an attribute, which belongs to automatic power, while the magic around the body needs to be released actively. The two are different. It's rare that you two are reconciled. How about setting off fireworks together tonight? Miss Hermione is Tony Stark's Iron Man's goddess, which refers to a female god. When Tony Stark saw Miss Hermione, he only had admiration. Ron's goddess is like Hermione can be said to have grown up with Ron, even if Hermione looks more mysterious now. If people's memories are still there, Hermione's cuteness when she was a child, as well as her ladylike and funny side, will reappear in Ron's mind. So Ron will of course still like Hermione. Hearing the goddess's suggestion to set off fireworks, "It's so late. The school will definitely ban it." Harry laughed instead. "Are you afraid of breaking the school rules?" Ron looked at Hermione. Hermione looked at Harry, and the three-person adventure team laughed at the same time. Of course not afraid. When they were 11 years old, they were not afraid, let alone now. Harry and Ron continued to use the invisibility cloak, while Hermione used the invisibility cloak herself. Until this time, Ron was surprised and said, "So Hermione also has an invisible cloak?" Harry was not sure, so he replied, "It could be magic." That's right, Hermione's magic has always been stronger than the two of them. Over the years, she has become more powerful. It is not surprising that there is invisible magic in the wizarding world. The elf Dobby who appeared before can suddenly disappear. The three of them came to the outside of the school skillfully, looking at the bright moon and the night sky. Harry sighed. The moonlight outside is so beautiful. Whether the scenery is beautiful or not is sometimes determined by mood. Harry Potter is in a very good mood today. Today, the Dragonfight won the game, proving that even if he is young, he can still participate in the Triwizard Tournament. At the same time, there are so many kind students celebrating for him. Of course, the most important thing is that Ron, one of his good friends, finally reconciled with him. This is too important. This is the happiest thing for him tonight. Miss Hermione was not idle for the task reward. She had traveled through the other world for too long, and she had forgotten when she had done the fireworks and firecrackers rewarded by the task. Anyway, they were super big fireworks. The kind that costs at least tens of thousands of dollars to buy with money is not cheap. Hermione, where did you get such a big firework? It looks like a cannon barrel used in ancient wars. Hermione explained with a smile. I made it when I was doing research. Just find a reason. Harry and Ron admired that Hermione was really beautiful and skillful, and could make such a big firework. Hermione didn't say much, and directly lit the firework. Boom. Because the firework was so big, it brought a huge vibration when it was launched. Standing next to it, it was really a bit weird and scary. But the next moment, the huge firework exploded in the night sky. It was so huge that it seemed that the whole night sky was illuminated at once, and it was beautiful beyond words. Oh my God, it's so beautiful. Ron was stunned. I swear, this is definitely the most beautiful firework I have ever seen in my life. Harry wore glasses, and the beautiful fireworks reflected on the lenses. He didn't say anything, but his amazed eyes were enough to show his shock. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 385, Iron Man's New Element. Congratulations on completing the Option 1 task. Reward basic attribute +2. According to the task requirements, the gorgeous fireworks bloomed in the vast night sky, and Miss Hermione got the reward as she wished. Miss Hermione wanted to live quietly in Hogwarts for a while, but she never thought that this place seemed to be like her hometown, and she would only have time to go back during the solar terms. The system has a new task to go to the Marvel Universe. Harry and Ron didn't know yet. They were watching the brilliant fireworks, and Hermione had already skillfully taken out the time converter. After turning the time, the whole world began to go backwards. Then Hermione used the portkey in the time and space door to travel to the Marvel world. Iron Man was still in his underground laboratory. After several hours of concentrated research, he worked with the intelligent butler and finally found the key to the problem in the simulation graphics of the Stark Expo sandbox. Tony Stark is worthy of being Howard Stark's son. As long as his father gave a little hint, Tony Stark could find it immediately. Great, this is it. Tony Stark's operation show was amazing. In the void in front of him, there were all kinds of holographic projections, which were very exquisite. The picture with a strong sense of technology was extremely strong. Miss Hermione had just arrived, and a system pop-up window popped up in front of her. Option 1. After experiencing the pain of most of the movie, Tony Stark finally got a way to redeem himself, and he should come forward to encourage him. Complete the task and reward basic attributes +1. Option 2. Tony Stark's suffering is not enough. He needs to continue to increase the number of sufferings. Take action, and destroy Tony Stark's discovery. Complete the task and reward the exclusive attribute, Bad God, +1. Option 3. Play exciting music, and invite Tony Stark to dance on the spot. Complete the task and reward the exclusive attribute, Dancing, +1. Drunk. The funny option is here again. Fortunately there is only one, otherwise it would be a bit of a headache. As for Bad God, what kind of magical attribute is this? No matter what, let's be normal. Miss Hermione appeared, with two faces on her beautiful little face. In the last second, she was Miss Hermione Granger, a female academic master at Hogwarts. In the next second, she was in Marvel, a god whose name even the superheroes did not know. As time passed, Iron Man gradually discovered that the goddess did not seem to be cold. She was just a little lazy, too lazy to deal with things that she thought were unimportant. "Good job." Hermione clapped her hands and appeared. Tony Stark immediately looked back and said happily, "God, have you been with me all the time? Otherwise, how could she be so punctual?" Just in time for Tony Stark to discover the new element and give timely encouragement. Miss Hermione lied without blushing and said, "Almost." "God, you are so good," Hermione responded. "That's what I think." Hermione also received a prompt from the system. "Congratulations on completing option 1, reward basic attribute +1. Then Hermione said to Tony Stark, "You'd better make the new element quickly. Maybe your new enemy has already started to act." New enemy. God is omnipotent, and since God said so, there must be a reason. Tony Stark didn't dare to neglect it. He took out a sledgehammer and started to tear down the house. Fortunately, no one stopped him here, otherwise Pepper would have thought he was crazy. Although Tony Stark was not really crazy, his heart was already extremely crazy. It was a great feat to be able to discover new elements outside the periodic table, and this discovery could also solve the poisoning of the arc reactor in his body. Tony Stark was very good at hands-on work. He hammered and hit, and used 2 rooms to successfully make a special super-large reflux channel. Take out the unique metal he needs, and then use special light to stimulate the new element he needs in the metal. The success rate is just a matter of seconds, so Tony Stark must be very careful. Just as Tony Stark was concentrating on making it, Agent Phil Coulson came back. He looked at the energetic Tony Stark and everything in front of him with curiosity. "Did you sneak out?" Tony Stark was concentrating on his work, and he looked like he had no time to deal with this question. "That's not the point. I always feel like something is missing. Come on, throw that shield over here." Tony Stark was too focused, and Phil Coulson was speechless, but the agent was also very polite. He picked up the shield on the ground. It was from the relics of Iron Man's father. It was actually the same shield as Captain America, but Tony Stark didn't know it at the moment. "Are you referring to this?" Agent Phil Coulson picked it up curiously. "Yes, that's right. It looks just right. Throw it over here." Agent Phil Coulson threw it over, and after Tony Stark caught it, Agent Phil Coulson thought that Tony Stark would use this magical shield to do some more magical experiments. After all, Tony Stark is an expert in science and technology. However, what surprised Phil Coulson was that Tony Stark actually used it to pad something. Tony Stark squatted down and took a look. "Not bad, just right." Agent Phil Coulson was speechless. Tony Stark seemed to have just noticed the agent at this time, and he asked, "Do you have anything else to say?" Agent Phil Coulson didn't know what to say for a while. Perhaps it was this obsessive scientific attitude that made Tony Stark become Iron Man. "It's okay, you continue your research. It just so happens that I have some problems to deal with." Agent Phil Coulson didn't want to stay here any longer. Their shield is a busy department in Marvel. "I'm leaving, but I warn you, don't sneak out again." Agent Phil Coulson warned and turned away. Tony Stark turned a deaf ear to him. He was concentrating on studying the experiment in front of him. This experiment was very critical and determined whether he would die young or live for decades. After checking it again, Tony Stark put his hands together and began to pray. He prayed that the goddess Hermione would bless him. But in fact, the goddess Hermione was also very busy. After she came to complete the optional task, she went to other places. So there was only Tony Stark in the laboratory here. He turned on the starter. The starter needed to manually turn the gears to release several special elements, and then use super strong rays to stimulate special metals, so as to perfectly obtain the new elements that Tony Stark wanted. Every step cannot go wrong. Now is the time for Tony Stark to put all the theories into practice. The laser beam is very scary because special elements are added to it. The laser pierced the wall like a knife cutting tofu, and the entire wall was cut open. This power was beyond Tony Stark's imagination. But now is the most critical moment in the laboratory, and he must not relax. Tony Stark used all his strength to turn the laser transmitter and successfully aimed it at the special metal he needed to be stimulated. Sparks and lightning flashed. Then a hole was blown out in Tony Stark's laboratory, but after the dust and smoke cleared, Tony Stark excitedly picked up the new element material that fell on the ground, and he was ecstatic. I succeeded. Chapter 386 Iron Man's Battle with the Enemy. Miss Hermione followed the task prompt and came to the Stark Expo, which was very lively. It was obviously created by Howard Stark, but the villain Justin Hammer was standing on the stage at the moment. He was very excited. After waiting for the plan for so long, he could finally stand on this shining stage today. All the audiences were also excited, because Justin Hammer's company will show everyone technology that is more advanced than Iron Man today. This group of audiences were also excited about the appearance of Iron Man, but people are creatures who like new things and hate old things. Now it is obvious that Justin Hammer's technology is more interesting. There is only one Iron Man, and it's just like that after seeing too much. But tonight, Justin Hammer will show several different teams of technological military steel armor. Justin Hammer stood on the stage, an enthusiastic speaker under the spotlight, and at the same time did not forget to mock Iron Man Tony Stark, because Tony Stark once told the media that their Hammer Advanced Industries would not be able to catch up with Tony Stark's technology within 20 years. However, today, Justin Hammer announced that they not only caught up, but even surpassed, then began to show the Navy robots, Army robots, and Air Force robots composed of huge robots. The appearance of the robots in rows looked really shocking. The audience couldn't help but applaud. There were also agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Pepper Potts, and Black Widow at the scene. Tony Stark had just researched a new element and was about to start testing when an anonymous special letter was sent to his email. Tony Stark, the second contest has begun. I have prepared a grand show for you. You must enjoy it. Without a signature, this letter full of fighting spirit also made Tony Stark immediately aware of the new enemy mentioned by God, Hermione. The enemy did not say where he prepared the grand show, but Tony Stark soon saw it from the front page of the news. The expo. No need to test. I'll go now. Tony Stark loaded the new element directly into the arc reactor on his chest, put on the Iron Man armor, and then flew towards the expo. At the Stark Expo, Colonel James Rhodes appeared in a silver-white war machine. He stood in front, and many weapons were installed on the mecha, which looked majestic at the moment. Behind him were rows of tall robots from Hammer Advanced Industries. The audience at the scene was also very satisfied and applauded continuously. However, these mechas were modified by the villain Ivan Vanko. He has been doing this for so long, and he doesn't want to be an unknown hero behind Hammer Advanced Industries. At his workplace, two burly black-clad thugs who were guarding him were cruelly hung up by him at this moment. Their bodies were motionless, and they were obviously dead. Ivan Vanko was free from restraints. He bit a toothpick, and next to him was the cursing parrot. He moved his wrists, and there was cruelty on his hideous face. It's about to start. He quickly tapped on the keyboard. For keyboard warriors, keyboards are weapons. For physicists and hackers like Ivan Vanko, keyboards are very powerful. On the computer monitor in front of him, all the robots he modified, including the war machine worn by Colonel James Rhodes, were controlled at the same time. Oh no, why can't I move? Colonel James Rhodes found that his body began to be out of control, and then all the robots raised their weapons at the same time. Colonel James Rhodes immediately realized something. He regretted it very much now. He shouldn't have believed the words of Iron Man Tony Stark. Iron machines cannot be handed over to outsiders. Otherwise, the consequences will be disastrous. If the control authority falls into the hands of bad people, this is the current situation. Run away. My body can't move. Colonel James Rhodes quickly gave a warning, but the audience obviously didn't realize the danger until all the robots opened fire at the same time. Tut-tut-too. Boom boom boom. The originally lively expo was instantly turned into a battlefield full of flames. It was simply a one-sided massacre. The enemy is a steel robot with fierce firepower. The guards on the human side are no match at all. Critical moment. Miss Hermione Granger continued to protect the child until Iron Man Tony Stark appeared. He was still a step late. The scene was a sea of fire. The enemy was too cruel. If Ivan Vanko was just simply taking revenge on Iron Man at the beginning, then now that he was imprisoned by Justin Hammer, he wanted to take revenge on everyone. Justin Hammer was also stunned. He took the remote control and clicked it frantically. It shouldn't be. Why can't I control it? At this time, the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent came and subdued Justin Hammer at the first time. Black Widow interrogated, "Where is the person who really controls these machines?" Justin Hammer is a successful businessman. He will definitely not do such a self-destructive thing. Justin Hammer was extremely panicked. He knew that after tonight, he must be finished, completely finished. He quickly thought of Ivan Vanko. These robots, including war machines, were modified by him. He's in my industrial zone. That bastard. Justin Hammer didn't dare to hide anything and immediately told Black Widow the location of Agent Ivan Vanko. Black Widow immediately left him and prepared to go. Tony Stark's honest bodyguard seemed to have taken a fancy to Black Widow, and he asked to go with him. Black Widow just needed a driver, so she nodded in agreement. In the car, Black Widow sat in the back and began to change clothes. The honest driver and Tony Stark's bodyguard couldn't help but look through the rearview mirror, and was scolded by Black Widow and blushed. Black Widow changed into her exclusive combat clothes, which made her look more like an agent. The honest driver asked, "Who are you?" Black Widow began to equip her weapons and replied, "Don't ask too much if you shouldn't know." The honest driver suddenly became smart. "Don't think I'm stupid, you must be an agent." Black Widow ignored him. The two quickly went in the direction of Ivan Vanko. In order to take control of those robots, Ivan Vanko must be caught immediately. "I'm sorry, Tony." Seeing Iron Man coming, Colonel James Rhodes could only apologize. "Now is not the time to talk about this. Come with me to kill these uncontrolled robots." James Rhodes replied bitterly, "I'm also controlled. Get out of Tony's way." Boom. Colonel James Rhodes' war machine began to attack Iron Man uncontrollably. Tony Stark didn't expect the situation to suddenly become so serious, but everything has been paved, and now is not the time to blame people, so he can only start fighting. Many people died at the scene, but fortunately the children were fine. Tony Stark guessed that God should have come too. God is not a saint. She did not save everyone, but saved the children. Tony Stark is not a saint either. He now has to concentrate on fighting the robots controlled by the enemy. The ground robots suppressed the firepower, and robots in the air also flew to fight Tony Stark. Fortunately, Tony Stark's Iron Man armor has amazing defense, plus he is very agile. He flips over and attacks with his palm to smash the enemy's robot. Boom. A huge explosion like fireworks appears in the sky. Chapter 387 Iron Man's Final Victory. Iron Man Tony Stark has undoubtedly mastered various combat skills, although he was inevitably decadent for a while because of the poisoning of the arc reactor. He did not forget that he was the spokesperson of God and a superhero. At this moment, the enemy controlled multiple robots and their combat power was very fierce. I have to say that Ivan Vanko is still very talented. It's a pity that he became a villain, but his wisdom is just enough to become the opponent of Iron Man. Be careful. The fully armed war machine worn by Colonel James Rhodes was also out of control, and attacked Tony Stark together with the flying robots. Colonel James Rhodes was worried that Iron Man would have an accident. Otherwise he might not be able to get out of this shadow for the rest of his life. Fortunately, Tony Stark has good driving skills. There is also God helping in secret. Option 1. Help Tony Stark solve some deadly dangers. Complete the task to reward basic attributes +1. Option 2. Artillery fire has no eyes. Even if Tony Stark breaks his arms and legs, it is a very normal thing. Just stand by and watch. Completing the mission will reward you with +1 basic attribute. Option 3. They are all weaklings. Just drop a nuclear bomb on them and turn them into ruins. Completing the mission will reward you with +1 basic attribute. The mission reward is fair, all with +1 basic attribute. The only thing left is to consider your willingness to do the mission. In contrast, it is not difficult to choose. Hermione only put on the Magneto bracelet when Tony Stark was in danger, and slightly controlled it to deflect the robot's weapon attack. That's right. Although the scene looks chaotic, in fact, as a god, Hermione has too many ways to deal with the enemy. For example, the Magneto bracelet, when used at full power, can turn countless robots into iron lumps. The mange Kyo Sharingan contact lens can also be used. Susanoo is much larger than the robot, and one sword can kill one. Nuclear bombs are not necessary. Miss Hermione will not use this thing until the last moment. Tony Stark was safe and sound, and he had already thought of an idea. In the Stark Expo Center, there is a huge iron ball, which is hollow inside and made of steel outside. Tony Stark planned to attract all the enemy robots and kill them all at once, so as to avoid the least casualties. Colonel James Rhodes had not yet figured out Iron Man's intentions. He thought Tony Stark was just hiding inside, so he and all the robots were controlled to rush in. On the other side, Agent Black Widow's speed of action was also very efficient. Yes, that's right, efficiency. Speed alone is not enough. The most important thing is the result, efficiency. After getting off the car, Black Widow rushed in with special equipment. At Justin Hammer's factory base, facing the burly guards, she killed them. She knocked down more than a dozen enemies without getting hurt at all. Tony Stark's driver and bodyguard, who was injured in dealing with an enemy, could only admire him. He had originally had fantasies about the sexy Black Widow, but now he was just being honest. Such a beautiful woman is more terrifying than the thorns on the rose. After rushing in, Ivan Vanko seemed to have heard the noise in advance, and he was not quite sure how many people were coming. But as a charming villain, his target is also very clear. That is Iron Man Tony Stark. The person rushing into the factory in front of him is not what Ivan Vanko cares about. So after he set up the robot self-destruction program, he left immediately. He wanted to find Iron Man Tony Stark to prepare for the final battle. Tony Stark was also very powerful. He used the enhanced laser. When the surrounding robots surrounded him, Tony Stark's Iron Man weapon rotated and swept. All the surrounding robots were split in two. Boom. But there were also some land robots outside that began to explode, and Pepper was nearby. In the original movie, it was Iron Man Tony who picked her up. Here, Miss Hermione took action. She used the power of Magneto's bracelet to control the explosion, and Pepper was almost only affected by the vibration. It exploded at a close distance, but Pepper was not injured. Pepper herself didn't know what was going on. Black Widow rushed to the computer console before Ivan Vanko left. As a top agent of SHIELD, Black Widow not only speaks multiple languages, but is also proficient in computer knowledge. She quickly tapped the keyboard and then talked directly to Iron Man and War Machine. Ivan Vanko should have gone to your side. Be careful. I have already unlocked the control on War Machine. Colonel James Rhodes was finally able to control it freely. He moved his silver armor and said, I didn't act like a superhero this time, but was controlled instead. It was a terrible experience. Tony Stark said, it was not bad. At this time, Ivan Vanko also fell from the sky wearing the steel armor he developed. Tony Stark, let's have the last battle. Tony Stark said, that's what I meant. And me, Colonel James Rhodes said angrily. Let me show you the firepower of the most advanced weapon, ex-wife. This small missile, ex-wife, was praised by Justin Hammer to the sky, and now it is used by Colonel James Rhodes as a bottom-of-the-box weapon. Whoosh! It fired, and the opponent Ivan Vanko seemed to be startled. However, the power was insufficient, and it did not leave even a mark on the steel armor Ivan Vanko was wearing, and a crisp metal collision sound was heard. Then, the ex-wife fell into the water and turned off. Tony Stark was speechless. He looked at his good friend and asked, are you here to make fun of me? Colonel James Rhodes did not expect that this ex-wife would be so disappointing. Ha ha ha. Ivan Vanko laughed directly, and he raised the arc whip in his hand. When he first appeared, he used this whip, which was amazingly powerful. Miss Hermione Granger, as a god, also secretly learned this skill and used it on her tigerfish knife. Now Ivan Vanko was no longer wearing a simple metal exoskeleton, but a fully armed steel like Iron Man. Naturally, the arc whip weapon in his hand also needs to be upgraded and become stronger. Tony Stark dodged twice, but was still entangled. Colonel James Rhodes wanted to help, but was also controlled by the arc whip. Ivan Vanko increased the current, and both of them were electrocuted and sparked. Tony Think of a way quickly? Tony Stark looked at Colonel James Rhodes and said, "Remember that day?" Tony Stark began to raise his hand. "That's right." Colonel James Rhodes immediately thought of it. It was in Iron Man's Seaview Villa, when the two of them first fought because of a conflict. They both attacked with hand cannons at the same time. The collision of the two attacks could actually produce an explosion beyond common sense. Colonel James Rhodes quickly understood that Iron Man Tony Stark wanted to use this trick, and he immediately cooperated. Just as the two attacked together, Miss Hermione also came to help. She wore the Magneto bracelet on her snow-white wrist. With a light wave, the mecha on the villain Ivan Vanko immediately cracked. Boom! The powerful explosion force of the attack of Iron Man and War Machine instantly passed through the gap of the villain's mecha and caused fatal damage to his body. Chapter 388, Hogwarts. Miss Hermione's popularity. The partiality from God made the villain Ivan Vanko die thoroughly. This may be very unfair, because as a god, she should not favor anyone. But this world is full of unfairness, and God is no exception. Miss Hermione has let him show off for so long, it's time to be satisfied. If she wasn't worried about the butterfly effect, Hermione would have made him disappear long ago. It's finally over. Tony Stark sighed as he looked at the fallen Ivan Vanko. The old man couldn't beat Tony Stark's father, and eventually died of depression. Glory and legend belonged to Tony Stark's father. Now, Ivan Vanko came to take revenge with reluctance. Although he made a lot of noise, Iron Man was the winner in the end. With God's protection, Iron Man couldn't help but laugh to the end. Pepper was still frightened. Tony Stark came to find her after the fight. The two came to the rooftop, and Pepper spoke emotionally. "Have you kept a lot of secrets from me recently? I just don't want you to worry." Tony Stark held Pepper Potts in his arms, successfully dealt with the enemy, and his own poisoning was also lifted. He felt the meaning of life. The same goes for Pepper Potts. If it weren't for the intervention of the goddess Hermione, she would have been blown to death. Escaping death is enough to make people want to protect what they want to protect even more. So, the two of them hugged each other emotionally. When it comes to romance, there will always be single dogs. After all, only single dogs can describe how happy people who love each other are. "Why are you still here?" Iron Man Tony Stark noticed Colonel James Rhodes. James Rhodes said calmly, "I came here first. I'm tired. I'm sitting here to rest. You two were too engrossed and didn't notice me at all." Tony Stark said speechlessly, "But even if we didn't notice you, you should have known better and left on your own initiative." James Rhodes said as if he had no emotional intelligence, "Okay, I'll leave." "By the way, Tony, you're right. This high-tech mecha should still be kept by you. I will return this war machine to you." Iron Man Tony Stark had different ideas. "The enemy is much smarter than I thought. I think I need a friend who can help me." James Rhodes also smiled. "If you need me, I think I can." After that, Colonel James Rhodes left with flames spitting from his feet while wearing the War Machine armor. As for Ms. Hermione, she also temporarily left the Marvel world. The story ended perfectly. As a savior, Miss Hermione felt that what she did should be given a passing score. At Hogwarts, Miss Hermione turned the time converter, and time went back to that romantic night. There were huge fireworks in the sky of Hogwarts, and in the Marvel world, there were also sparks in the night sky not long ago, but they were artillery fire. There is still a big difference between the two. "I think we should leave. Such a big firework will definitely attract Professor McGonagall and Professor Snape," Miss Hermione said. "Haven't you noticed that Professor Snape has not had any appearance since the Triwizard Tournament? Everyone is paying attention to the competition. Who cares about him?" Ron spoke very directly. The three of them did not stay outside for too long. They were all old hands and knew when to restrain themselves. Hogwarts is obviously much calmer than Marvel. After all, in Hogwarts, everything is a story in a magic school. But Marvel is different. The map is too large, and there are many stories and forces involved. When Miss Hermione travels through it, exciting stories happen. On this day, the weather in Hogwarts was sunny. As a witch in Hogwarts, Hermione rarely had a normal sleep. Putting down the image of a god, returning to Hogwarts, I feel like an ordinary person. The Great Hall, As an ordinary person, I must eat well. Hi, Harry. Harry Potter, who is already a big boy, performed well in the first event of the Triwizard Tournament, the Dragon Fight, and naturally attracted the attention of the girls in the crowded Great Hall. Ron on the side was a little envious, but Miss Hermione next to him was his goddess. Even if he couldn't be as popular as Harry, as long as the goddess was still around, he would be very happy. In the original movie, the girl that Harry liked appeared, but here, Harry was not interested in that girl. Although Harry didn't say it, he liked Hermione in his heart, and other girls couldn't squeeze into his heart at all. Look at this. Ron rarely started to read the newspaper. I can't believe it, that awful female reporter is talking nonsense again. Miss Granger, who is ordinary but ambitious, seems to be in love with a famous little wizard, according to reliable information. Her latest prey is none other than the Bulgarian hunk Victor Krum. Harry Potter's reaction to this blow is not known yet. Ron was furious when he saw this. Damn it, she actually dared to say that about you in the newspaper. I won't forgive her. Hermione was very calm. It's just gossip. Don't take it seriously. There's nothing to be angry about. In the original drama and movie, Miss Hermione was not very popular. When the newspaper said that, no one helped her. But it's different here. The Daily Prophet received hundreds of letters of complaint in one day, and some people even threw magic threatening props into the newspaper office. For a time, the Daily Prophet suffered the biggest attack in history. It was not until they found out that it was because the newspaper fabricated gossip about Miss Hermione that they were retaliated by her fans. Miss Hermione's fans accumulated slowly. She was usually low-key, and everyone just thought she was a quiet little beauty. But this time was different. She was defamed by the Daily Prophet. Fans were angry. Anonymous and non-anonymous complaints continued, and asked the Daily Prophet to apologize publicly. This matter caused a lot of trouble. Miss Hermione had no organization and did not say anything publicly. The result was very gratifying. Within 2 days, the Daily Prophet publicly apologized and restored Miss Hermione Granger's reputation. She did not have any scandals with Harry Potter and the Macho Krum, because the Daily Prophet was very influential and Miss Hermione had been at Hogwarts school. Not many wizards in the outside world knew about her. It was not until this kind of news appeared that they became curious. Who is this Miss Granger? How is she so powerful that she actually made the Daily Prophet publicly apologize? Just look at her photos and you will know. These are all her fans who are helping her to seek justice. Let me see. Oh my god, there is such a beautiful girl in the world. This photo was modified by magic, right? It's true. My cousin is from Hogwarts school. He said that Miss Hermione is more beautiful in person than in the photo. The low-key Miss Hermione became a little famous in the wizarding world because of the scandal of the Daily Prophet. This was not Miss Hermione's original intention, but her beautiful appearance left a deep impression on many people. Chapter 389 Professor McGonagall and Ron dancing. Miss Hermione really didn't care too much. Perhaps before she traveled through Marvel, she should have been angry when she encountered such a slander by the Daily Prophet. After all, she had traveled through the wizarding world for many years and had long been accustomed to it. She still cared about her reputation to some extent. Since she could travel through the Marvel world at will, Miss Hermione immediately changed. She was a god there. As an almighty god, why should she be on the same level with ordinary people? If you are open-minded, you will naturally not be petty. But Miss Hermione didn't expect that her fans who were as low-key and unknown as herself would go to such lengths for the reputation of the people they liked. It's really cute. If it weren't for the frequent travel through Marvel, the timeline of Hogwarts would be infinitely extended. Originally, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire was just a movie story, but during this period, Miss Hermione frequently traveled through Marvel and experienced Iron Man 1, The Incredible Hulk, and the Iron Man 2 story that just ended. If it weren't for the time travel to Marvel, Hermione might have been in the next grade by now. In fact, if Hermione hadn't used the time converter to rewind the time of Hogwarts and let Marvel time and Hogwarts time run at the same time, this moment might have passed faster. But Lady Hermione didn't want her life in Hogwarts to be like the Marvel world. a quick visit. She wanted to spend every minute of her life seriously. On this day, in the Hogwarts Great Hall, everyone was having a lively meal every day. Ron's sister Ginny Weasley was also rarely there. She looked like a big girl, pretty. At this time, a child came with a package. "Your package, Mr. Weasley." Packages used to be delivered by owls. "Thank you, Nigel." The child looked at Harry with a silly expression, obviously with a special purpose. "No, Nigel, not now. I'll give it to you later." Ron was a little embarrassed. As a senior, he obviously had a secret between him and this junior student. "Next time, let's go." Nigel left reluctantly. Ron saw that everyone was looking at him, and hurriedly explained, "I promised to get Harry's autograph for him." Harry Potter was a little speechless. He was now a celebrity, and there were juniors who wanted autographs. Ron knew that he didn't do very well, so he quickly changed the subject and said, "Look, my mother sent it over, a dress." However, when Ron unfolded it, he couldn't laugh anymore. This dress didn't look like something a boy would wear. Harry hurried over and teased, "It matches your eyes." "Does it have a hood?" "Put it down, Harry." Ron felt very embarrassed. As long as it was related to the things his mother sent, Ron would be embarrassed for a long time. One year, Ron's mother sent a roaring letter, which scolded Ron, who was also in the Great Hall, speechless. Now Ron has gained experience, and he must quickly stop Harry from publicizing the dress. "Ginny, this must be for you." Ron also learned to transfer the embarrassment to others. It was obvious that he was not a competent brother. Ginny quickly retorted, "I won't wear it. It's so ugly." While speaking, Ginny also looked at her idol Miss Hermione Granger, who looked like her sister. She was so beautiful. Her sister was very generous and gave Ginny clothes, which were 10,000 times more beautiful than the dress her mother sent. When her sister Hermione was slandered by the Daily Prophet, Ginny Weasley was also one of the craziest fans behind her. Her complaint letter was sharp and accompanied by a spoof magic prop. However, Ginny did not tell Harry and Ron about this matter, because Ginny Weasley also wanted to learn the dignified, elegant and graceful temperament of her sister Hermione. Everyone laughed when they heard Ginny's speech. "What are you laughing at? This is not for Ginny, it's for you." Harry did not forget to insult Ron. "Dress robes. Dress robes. What are they for?" Miss Hermione did not intend to participate in such a little farce, because it was not nutritious. However, the system options popped up. Option 1. Laugh at Ron with everyone else, and complete the task to get a pair of cotton socks as a reward. Option 2. Accuse everyone of making fun of Ron. Complete the task to get a cup of hot milk as a reward. Option 3. Don't join in the fun. Eat quietly. Complete the task to get 1 ton of sweet rice as a reward. There is no doubt that this is a free point question. Comparing the rewards, cotton socks, hot milk, or 1 ton of rice is more valuable. 1 ton is equivalent to 1,000 kilograms, which is not a low value. Moreover, Option 3 is more in line with Miss Hermione's low-key personality. Congratulations on completing Option 3, and get 1 ton of sweet rice as a reward. Fortunately, as a doctoral-level wizard, Miss Hermione successfully improved the space ring through space magic, making the storage space inside larger. Even if 1 ton of rice is placed inside, it only takes up a small area. In the afternoon, everyone finally knew why Ron's mother suddenly gave Ron a dress. In a room that looked like a dance hall, it was very spacious. All the Gryffindor students gathered together and sat around. In the middle stood Professor McGonagall, who was tall, old but in very good spirits. Professor McGonagall was wearing something very special today, and it was obvious that she had dressed up carefully. No matter how old a woman is, she will never lose her love for beauty. Professor McGonagall began to talk to everyone. The Christmas ball is a tradition, which has existed since the competition. It is held on Christmas Eve, and we and our guests gather together in the hall. Hermione was also among the students, but she felt that this kind of ball was more like a blind date meeting, because boys and girls of this age, with a restless heart, met and got to know each other at such a ball, and it was easy to generate sparks of love. Everyone should be both graceful and free, and you are the representatives of the host school. I hope that each of you will put on your best posture, The reason I say this is that the most important thing about the Christmas ball is dancing. Professor McGonagall seemed to attach great importance to this ball, and spoke in high spirits, but the students were in an uproar. "Be quiet," Professor McGonagall continued. "Godric Gryffindor has been respected in the wizarding world for nearly 1,000 years. I will never allow you to tarnish its reputation overnight. Don't chatter, don't jump up and down, don't be ugly." This is a very good sentence. The Weasley twins were whispering and making fun of them in the audience. Professor McGonagall ignored the twins, as if she had gotten used to their mischievous character. If the twins suddenly became quiet one day, Professor McGonagall would think there was something wrong. Dancing is to make the body move. There is a swan sleeping in the heart of every girl, eager to burst out with passion and fly high. Ron was also sitting below. He saw that his two brothers were fine when talking, so he followed suit. "If it's a Louise Midgen, forget it. I don't think she can be elegant." Professor McGonagall continued to talk about the ball. "Every boy has a lion in his heart that is eager to try." Ron was still performing his humor in the audience, not knowing that he had been spotted by Professor McGonagall. Professor McGonagall suddenly said, "Mr. Weasley." "What?" Ron's eyes widened, his face confused. "Would you please come up?" Ron was embarrassed. Tragic. His twin brothers had just spoken, so why didn't he call them but himself? Could it be that Ron had a bad luck constitution? Chapter 390 Marvel Asgard. Of course, the whole place immediately burst into laughter. Ron was indeed everyone's happy bin. Harry Potter laughed the loudest. Ron was extremely embarrassed, but he had no choice but to go up. He thought Professor McGonagall would definitely give him a good scolding. After all, Professor McGonagall wanted to catch a typical example and kill the chicken to scare the monkey. However, the next scene completely shocked Ron. The students in the whole place laughed so hard that they fell backwards. "Now, please put your right hand on my waist," Professor McGonagall said to Ron very seriously. Ron was shocked. He thought he had heard it wrong and asked in disbelief, "Where?" "On my waist." Professor McGonagall personally guided Ron. "Stretch out your arm." At that moment, Ron's limbs were stiff. He felt that he had died socially. He wanted to move. He wanted to leave this planet. "Mr. Filch, music." Professor McGonagall was very elegant. It turned out that the janitor Filch had always been there, and his cat Mrs. Norris was beside him. Everyone was laughing so hard that they couldn't close their mouths. Even the ladylike Miss Hermione couldn't help but laugh softly. This Ron was so funny. No wonder in the original movie, Hermione chose to be with Ron. There was a reason for that. Harry Potter was indeed very famous, but the two of them didn't have a crush on each other in the original movie. At the same time, Harry Potter was a bit serious. If she married Harry Potter, her future life would definitely be dull and boring. On the contrary, Ron was different. Although he was unreliable and not famous, he was funny. If you want your married life to be full of laughter, marrying Ron is also possible. Of course, the above are all Hermione in the original movie. Miss Hermione Granger here is a person with a great mission from heaven. She is the savior and a god. How could she fall in love with an ordinary person? God doesn't fall in love. At this moment, in the center of the classroom, Professor McGonagall and the socially dead Ron hugged each other in a dancing posture. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Professor McGonagall carefully recited the beat while teaching Ron to dance. Professor McGonagall did this because she wanted to demonstrate in person and teach the students how to dance in a standard and elegant manner at the ball. Although everyone made fun of Ron, Professor McGonagall was really attentive. Ron's roommate couldn't help but laugh at Harry and others around him. "You will make fun of him for the rest of your life, right?" "Absolutely." Harry laughed so hard that he couldn't close his mouth. As expected, Miss Hermione knew that at such a wonderful moment, how could the system options be silent? A transparent pop-up window appeared in time. Option 1. Laugh at Ron with the whole audience, saying that wild boars can dance better than him. Complete the task and reward the exclusive attribute, taunt, +1. Option 2. Volunteer. Say that you can dance, and you can also demonstrate on stage, and pull Harry to dance at the same time. Complete the task and reward the exclusive attribute, dance, +2. Option 3. Applaud. Clap the beat, and be an excellent audience. Complete the task and reward the exclusive attribute, Professional, +1. Miss Hermione found that the current system options are becoming more and more fair, and the rewards given are all of the same type, and there will not be much difference. The rewards for the 3 options this time are all exclusive attributes, and option 2 gives the most, directly +2. If Miss Hermione likes dancing, she can try it. However, Miss Hermione, who doesn't hate dancing, was previously frightened by the options provided by the funny system, such as dancing on the spot and shaking her hair wildly. Now she is not interested in dancing at all. She doesn't even dare to add any points randomly, for fear that one day all 3 options of the system will be live dancing, and that would be the end. Besides, this option 2 is a bit difficult, so forget it. Dancing on the spot is embarrassing enough, and you have to drag Harry Potter along. I guess Ron would be jealous. Option 1 is not very good either. Although Miss Hermione did not help being amused by Ron, the task requires the audience to laugh the loudest, which is too rude. It is completely inconsistent with Miss Hermione's temperament as a lady. Then there is only option 3 left. Ron danced with Professor McGonagall. At this moment, he wanted to spend his old age on the moon. Miss Hermione was very considerate and didn't let Ron feel lonely. She clapped her hands gently and beat the rhythm in the audience, which just matched Professor McGonagall's dance steps. This requires some basic music knowledge, otherwise most people may not be able to beat the rhythm correctly, which will not only fail to improve the atmosphere, but also disrupt the rhythm. Miss Hermione was the first to take the lead, but she was able to do it very well. For a while, many classmates around followed Miss Hermione to clap and beat the rhythm. The interaction of the whole audience came up all of a sudden. Professor McGonagall looked at Miss Hermione with appreciation. Miss Granger has always been so excellent. Congratulations on completing the option 3 task, and reward the exclusive attribute, Professional, +1. This professional attribute seems to be the first time Hermione has obtained it. It's another strange attribute. It's not obvious to add only 1 point. Maybe it's to improve the professional level. Hermione thought she would spend the whole day at Hogwarts today, but she didn't expect the system to give a prompt immediately, saying that she had to travel through Marvel again. This time it was a new coordinate, and Miss Hermione was thinking about how to get there. You can't go there on a broom, right? It looks a bit far from here, as if you have to cross half a galaxy. However, the savior system is very considerate, and a rusty iron sword is dropped directly on the ground. Isn't this too abrupt? Miss Hermione's 10% good luck is activated, and she can only pick it up. In an instant, she is teleported to Asgard in the Marvel world by the Iron Sword, the world where the gods live. In the Marvel universe, this is a mythical country, with golden splendor everywhere, and even the sunlight in the sky seems to be golden. Miss Hermione Granger is still wearing the Hogwarts school uniform. She calls herself a god, and she suddenly came to the kingdom of God. She is still a little uncomfortable. This god, shouldn't come from here? Apostrophe in the divination class. The concept of God was originally proposed by the divination teacher. Later, when she traveled through Marvel, in order to improve her own style, Miss Hermione used it. But the Asgard world in front of us, although magnificent and full of magic, is only the kingdom of God in Marvel movies, not the kingdom of God in Miss Hermione's imagination, because the ordinary people living here are really ordinary, and even their clothes and weapons are very old, as if they are several centuries behind the Earth's technology. Although they are physically strong and can easily beat more than a dozen, Miss Hermione does not think that their bodies can withstand machine guns, airplanes and cannons. Of course, if it is Odin or Thor, they may be able to resist with divine power. Even if Asgard is the kingdom of God, there are not many famous gods living here, at least not many in Marvel movies. Most of them are ordinary people who get box lunches, warriors, but they are just stronger. Miss Hermione feels that with her current strength, she will not be able to walk sideways in Asgard, and she does not have to worry about safety. She directly became invisible and began to fly to the mission site. Hermione can fly through magic without riding a broom. Just this ability, Even in the kingdom of Asgard, there may not be many people who can do it. However, Miss Hermione also has to admit that this country is really special. It is magnificent everywhere, giving people a feeling of not lacking money. Chapter 391 Thor's Hammer. Goddess Hermione came at the right time. At this moment, Asgard was very lively. In a magnificent hall, a group of people dressed in cool clothes surrounded a burly and handsome man. This man was Thor Odinson, the god of thunder, a real mythical figure, but in the movie world, their power was undoubtedly reduced. The reduced gods were also very powerful. At this moment, Thor strode in with a sledgehammer in his hand, looking like a ceiling-level blacksmith. He was extremely confident, even to the point of being arrogant. There were cheers all around. The eldest prince, Thor, the eldest prince of thunder, was not raised. He fought on the battlefields for many years. Wherever he went, the enemies were all terrified, just because of his equipment and a hammer of Thor. This hammer is amazing. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the hammerhead of Thor's hammer was forged in a declining star, and the handle was made of wood from the World Tree. In Thor 1, this hammer is indestructible. Thor also relied on this hammer to be invincible. Now that he has achieved success, he will receive the coronation ceremony in this lively hall. Odin, the father of the gods, is old after all. It turns out that gods will also grow old. It seems that Odin's power in the movie is still not strong enough. Living as long as the sky. This is the most basic standard for being a god. An existence that can die casually can only be said to be one level higher than mortals, not an eternal and invincible true god. Miss Hermione used the usual operation and entered it in stealth. Of course, she did not do it to join in the fun and eat the banquet, but for the system to select the task. Standing behind Odin is a group of unnamed beings. In the movie Kingdom of God, it was weakened too much. In the real mythology, the king of gods, Odin, Willi, Hinner, Lord, Queen of Heaven, Frigga, god of thunder, Thor, goddess of harvest, Sif, god of fire, Giant, Loki, god of war, Tyr, guardian god, Heimdall, god of light, Balder, god of darkness, Hodr, god of truth and justice, Vansity, god of poetry, Bragi, goddess of youth, Idun, god of vengeance, Vali, god of the forest, Vida, messenger of God, Hermod, Hercules, Mani, god of courage, Modi, goddess of strength, Slud, god of hunting, Uller, goddess of history, Saga, and giant of wisdom, Mimr. In the Marvel Universe, Asgard is just a creature one level higher than humans. In fact, if you peel off the coat of God, the creatures here are essentially human. So when Miss Hermione arrived, she did not find the sense of belonging to the Protoss here. Maybe the gods she imagined are more advanced than those in the movie Asgard. Standing next to Odin is the very popular villain Loki Laufeyson, whose acting skills are amazing and can be compared with Miss Hermione. However, Miss Hermione is decent, while he is a villain. Decent people want to be saviors, while villains always want to cause trouble. Loki is also a great wizard. He seemed to sense something and looked over at Miss Hermione. Miss Hermione, who is a foodie, ate the food on the table. As a newcomer, the thing Miss Hermione wanted to do most was to taste the food here. She had already tasted the rewards from the system and the food she could eat. The food in Asgard looked similar to that on Earth, but it tasted different. Loki's divine power could not detect the invisible Hermione, but he could observe that the food suddenly became less, and then the fruit cores and food bones were spit out. There was still crystal clear goddess saliva on it. Miss Hermione is not stupid. She ate at one table and then moved to the next. She is a cunning rabbit with 3 burrows. Others can't catch her at all. At this moment, the powerful Thor knelt on one knee and looked at the one-eyed Odin. This god has a feeling of a hero in his twilight years. When he was young, he fought on the battlefield and made the 9 kingdoms surrender one after another. When he got old, he just couldn't do it. Not only his strength, but also his means, are not shown well enough in the movie. He is the father of the gods, in charge of prophecy, royal power, wisdom, healing, magic, poetry, war and death. But in the movie, His performance is not that great. Maybe he is really old. Gods are old, just like people are old, and they are unable to do anything. Odin spoke, telling the glorious history of Asgard and entrusting Thor to become the next king of Asgard. No wonder it's so lively today. It turns out that Thor, the eldest prince, is going to become king. As expected, the system options immediately appeared in front of Hermione. Option 1. Thor is about to ascend the throne and become king. Let's set off gorgeous fireworks to celebrate for him. These poor sons of God have never seen fireworks. Complete the task and get the exclusive attribute, Blessing, +1. Option 2. Thor will not ascend the throne so smoothly. Immediately set off to the Asgard armory to stop the enemy's conspiracy in advance and let Thor ascend the throne smoothly. Complete the task and get the exclusive attribute, Wisdom, +1. Option 3. Odin's beard looks very valuable for research. Sneak in and pull out a strand of Odin's beard for research. Complete the task and get the exclusive attribute, Courage, +1. It's interesting. It's worthy of being in the kingdom of Asgard. The rewards are also a bit mythical. Miss Hermione is cautious in doing things. The good habit she has developed from completing the system option tasks over the years is to maximize the benefits as much as possible. Option 1. Setting off fireworks is quite normal in Marvel-Earth and the Wizard Hogwarts world. But in Asgard, it's not normal. The so-called gods here are too backward in civilization. Not to mention fireworks. They don't have mobile phones, cars, entertainment, etc. It's easy to set off fireworks, but this kind of novelty suddenly appeared in the sky above Asgard. It is estimated that it will not be considered a celebration by everyone, but will be mistaken for an enemy attack. Miss Hermione is so smart that her thinking naturally radiates multiple dimensions. If it goes wrong, the celebration will not be done well, but will become a farce. Moreover, when the fireworks are blooming, Miss Hermione's identity will definitely be exposed. Even if Odin and others can't see the invisible Hermione, they must know that there are outsiders breaking into Asgard. This task looks simple, but it is not the best solution. Option 2 is a bit powerful, predicting the enemy's prediction in advance. If Hermione quietly solves the enemy, Thor will be successfully crowned as king. In fact, this is not the most ideal result. The butterfly effect in the Marvel world is too terrible. Thor, who didn't die at all in the original movie, might die after becoming the queen. As long as Miss Hermione dares to do option 2, the possibility of Thor dying is almost more than 200%, and he will die more than once in the future. Of course, Miss Hermione can save the world as a savior by changing time, but once or twice is too troublesome. Instead of producing unknown causes and effects, it is better to learn from the real gods, not caring about anything, being free and easy, and there will be no cause and effect. So Miss Hermione knows that the Marvel story is very long, and even if Thor ascends the throne as king now, it is not the end of the story. Simply, let him follow the original story, and Miss Hermione just came to join in the fun and get some benefits by the way. For Miss Hermione, even the geese have to leave their feathers, since the system thinks that Odin's beard is very valuable for research and maximizes benefits. Whether Thor becomes king or a bandit has nothing to do with Miss Hermione. However, if Hermione gains strength and equipment improvements as a result, this is a real benefit. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 392, The Icebox of the Frost Giant. Miss Hermione is not a businessman, but she is profit-oriented. There is no way Hermione can't develop friendship and love with Marvel heroes. You are kidding. She worked hard to travel here, completed tasks and worked hard, just for that pitiful salary. If you can fish, fish. If you can't fish, just take some benefits. In Iron Man 2, Hermione was able to steal the Arquip technology from the human villain and apply it to her own weapons. This is the kingdom of the gods Asgard. Although it was cut in the movie world, There are also mountains of various treasures. Miss Hermione had this idea when she first came. However, as a savior, it is better not to be too utilitarian on the surface. Option 3 looks dangerous, but it is actually the most valuable and least dangerous option. First of all, this Odin has a terrible reputation, but he is not actually very powerful. The current Hermione may be able to fight the current old Odin with all her strength. Besides, he is indeed old and not flexible. Just now, Loki almost found out that Hermione was eating secretly, but Odin didn't. Secondly, it's not a simple matter to pull out a beard of Odin in the chaos. After all, this is a movie world, not the real kingdom of God. If it is a real God, perhaps a beard of God can crush a huge mountain, which ordinary people can't lift at all. In the movie, God's blood and God's beard are not so awesome. When the time is right, suddenly several guards of Asgard rushed to the magnificent hall in panic. When Thor was about to ascend the throne, they reported loudly, the armory was invaded by the frost giants. It can be seen at a glance that this enthronement is too child's play. Normally, when a prince ascends the throne, even if it is a big deal, he has to wait until he ascends the throne. Things have to be divided into priorities. Now in Asgard, just the invasion of the armory by the enemy directly disrupts the enthronement of the eldest prince, which is just like playing house. From this small detail, Miss Hermione can see that Asgard has not formed a sound civilization system at all. At best, it is just a barbaric civilization. Sure enough, upon hearing this news, everyone in the audience changed their faces, including Odin. The enraged Thor directly picked up the hammer in his hand and rushed to the armory. Odin followed him. The coronation ceremony became a joke. Here comes the opportunity. Miss Hermione is very fast. She did not use magic. She used invisibility to get close to Odin and quickly rushed to him and pulled out a beard. Then she disappeared quickly. Miss Hermione's invisibility, smell, and wind were all gone. Odin only felt that he was bitten by a mosquito, and there was nothing unusual around him. He hesitated for a moment, feeling something strange in his heart, but he could not find the problem at all, so he could only stop worrying about it. It was just a beard. Even the father of the gods did not expect that Ms. Hermione Granger, who was more beautiful than all the goddesses in Asgard, would pull it out in public. Hermione immediately put Odin's beard into the experimental container, waiting for future research. Miss Hermione also has a lot of collections, including fragments of the Philosopher's Stone. When Miss Hermione was weak, she was terrified to take any fragments of the Philosopher's Stone. Later, there was also the blood of the Hulk. Until now, Hermione had directly pulled out the beard of Odin, the father of the gods. In public, she was still cautious, but as her strength increased, Miss Hermione's behavior changed dramatically. Loki deliberately stayed behind. Since the food at the banquet was inexplicably stolen, he always felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't find Miss Hermione's existence. Miss Hermione's comprehensive strength is too strong. This is the benefit of all-round development. If Miss Hermione had developed defense or magic attack, she would now be either a tank with amazing defense or an invincible warrior. But Miss Hermione's tasks are all kinds of strange, and there are so many skills needed, such as concealment, speed, space, time, etc. Now, after several years of accumulation, Miss Hermione is not particularly invincible, but her comprehensive strength is particularly strong, and there are almost no shortcomings. Whether it is a frontal 1 versus 5, a sneak attack and assassination, or a strategist who wins thousands of miles away, she knows a little bit. And coupled with her smart and steady personality, the results are often very good. Comprehensive development means that you are not strong enough in the early stage, but you will be happy in the later stage without any shortcomings. Partial development means that you will be better in the early stage, but you will be short of money and many things in the later stage. Congratulations on completing the option 3 task, and reward the exclusive attribute, Courage, +1. Miss Hermione does not need courage. She is just curious about what Odin's beard can do. With her current imagination, she can make a brush with Odin's beard. I wonder if writing with a brush made of the beard of the father of the gods will have a golden effect. Or, Putting Odin's beard in the flying broom may increase the flight endurance. Or putting Odin's beard in the wand may increase the range of magic attack and reduce the loss of magic power. In short, it must be a good thing. For the time being, Miss Hermione will keep a low profile and take advantage of the system option task to pull out one. When there is a chance in the future, she will get more wool. No, pull the beard of the god. Asgard's arsenal. This can be said to be the most valuable place in the computer marvel Asgard God's kingdom. There are many treasures here. For example, the Eternal Fire and the Frost Giant's treasure, the Icebox, are the treasures that Miss Hermione coveted. If Miss Hermione had not always been steady in doing things, she would definitely have gone to the armory to steal a few treasures first. Perhaps, Miss Hermione still hopes to get the system task reward. How the Frost Giant sneaked into Asgard from another planet is currently unknown to outsiders. But Miss Hermione knows, because of Loki, the villain. He is the younger brother of the eldest prince Thor, the second prince. He does not want Thor to ascend the throne smoothly. He wants to be the king of Asgard himself. So he designed to let the Frost Giants sneak into the armory and steal their own treasure, the Icebox. This Frost Giant's treasure, the Icebox, was taken back to Asgard as a trophy when Odin was young and invincible on the battlefield. It was a pity that Odin would not use it. He only put such a good treasure in the armory as a private collection and would not cash out the value of the treasure at all. If it was Miss Hermione, she would be attracted by the freezing effect of the Icebox. It can be made into a natural refrigerator to store fresh food, which is also one of its values. The Frost Giant's warriors sneaked in without causing damage, just to steal the Icebox, which once belonged to their own people. It seems to be justified. But who made Asgard the winner? The behavior of the Frost Giants is simply challenging the bottom line of the winner's tolerance, especially Thor, the eldest prince, who was extremely angry. He was the first to rush to the scene, and he wanted to beat all the Frost Giant invaders into meat paste. However, when Thor arrived, the Frost Giant invaders did turn into several piles of meat paste. But it was not Thor's doing. It was an extremely powerful existence in the arsenal and a guardian of the arsenal, the Destroyer. The Destroyer is very scary. It is the ultimate weapon of Odin, the king of the gods. It is a super robot created by God. Its body can change freely. Its weapon is a high-temperature beam condensed on its face. The invading Frost Giants just now were directly beaten into pieces of meat paste by the Destroyer's terrible beam. Chapter 393 Second Prince Loki. Thor didn't seem to expect this situation to happen, but Loki, who came last, had already understood it. It has to be said that the villains in the Marvel movie world are becoming more and more attractive. This second Prince Loki is definitely the first-tier villain leader. Odin didn't notice that he had lost a strand of beard. Goddess Hermione came late, and the option pop-up window appeared in front of her again. Option 1. The eldest Prince Thor is about to make a mistake. Incarnate as the Virgin to help him, tell him that the things on the surface are not that simple, and successfully prevent Thor from making a mistake. Complete the task and reward the exclusive attribute, Virgin, +1. Option 2. The second Prince Loki is too bad. Use magic to break his legs. Complete the task and reward the exclusive attribute, Justice, +1. Option 3. Odin, this old fool, although he looks smart, is actually careless. Bringing back Loki back that year was a huge hidden danger. Get a hair from him, and complete the task and reward the exclusive attribute, Luck, +1. These three options are a bit difficult. Option 1 seems simple, but it is not simple. After all, the starting point of the eldest Prince Thor is very high. Miss Hermione calls herself a god. This title may be useful to those Muggle mortals. But for Thor, who also thinks he is a god, he may only regard Hermione as a little sister. This is embarrassing. Then Hermione's prophecy and preaching as a god. For Thor, who is now arrogant, he will not listen at all, unless Miss Hermione takes action and beats Thor to submission. This is undoubtedly increasing the difficulty of the task, and Hermione does not want to fight with Thor just to be a Virgin Mary, +1. The reward for option 2 is not a problem at all. This Loki deserves a beating. Breaking his legs is undoubtedly justice. However, It requires magic. This is also increasing the difficulty. Loki is also a great wizard. Although he is not smart in the movie and always uses the assassin style as a wizard, it is definitely difficult for Hermione to break Loki's legs with magic. At the same time, it will expose her identity, which is an option that does not make up for the loss. Option 3 is not simple either. Just now, Hermione took advantage of the sudden incident and secretly pulled out Odin's hair when he was not paying attention. It was just once. Even if he was a god, he would not think that there would be a woman so bold as to pull out his beard in public. But the second time, pulling it out again, that's too much. No matter how old Odin is, he is still the father of the gods in Asgard, and he cannot be underestimated. Just when the goddess Hermione was rationally analyzing how to make a decision and act, an unexpected scene appeared. That's right, she overlooked a detail. That is, Task 3 did not say that you must pull it out, but get it, and getting a hair does not require pulling it out. For example, on the clothes that Odin often wears, or around his pillow, there will definitely be gains. Just when Miss Hermione was about to leave immediately, she seemed to forget that she was not an ordinary girl. She was born with 10% more luck than ordinary people. At this time, Odin might also feel irritable. People should not be too irritable, otherwise they will become bald. Odin is a god. Of course he will not be so easy to become bald. Even with Miss Hermione's magic, it is quite difficult to make Odin suddenly bald. It is not like in the human world, where a magical breath can make any muggle suddenly bald. But the moment Odin turned around, a dry white hair fell out of his head. Fuck. Is it for nothing? With this 10% luck in picking up things, Miss Hermione suddenly found that the difficulty of Task 3 was greatly reduced. Miss Hermione was quick to pick up Odin's hair before it fell to the ground. Although Miss Hermione knew that Asgard was just a movie world, it was highly unlikely that the ginseng fruit would disappear directly when it fell to the ground like in Journey to the West. But for the sake of safety, Odin's hair could not be allowed to fall to the ground, so Hermione picked up Odin's hair directly when it fell on the air. Congratulations on completing the Option 3 task, and reward the exclusive attribute, Luck, +1. So happy. Hermione's luck has always been good. Not just good. When she is lucky, she has to pick up things. She has to force it. The good things that are not picked up will appear in Miss Hermione's pocket the next day. This magical phenomenon is still so strong even though Miss Hermione is so awesome now. There is no way to crack the reasons and rules. Goddess Hermione was concentrating on the task and didn't notice that Loki was actually guilty. He pretended to be calm on the surface. He was born with such a character, which led him to tell countless lies. But this time is different. Today is an important day for the eldest prince Thor to ascend the throne as king. Loki, the second prince, is also very brave and dares to make trouble at such an important time. And it's so big. His ambition is not trivial. It's a lie that Loki is not nervous. If he is discovered by others before his plan succeeds, he will be finished. This is a road of no return. He can only succeed. Therefore, he cares about any small details around him. For example, just now in the hall, there were so many delicacies, and Goddess Hermione was stealthily eating, and he could find it. This time, he stood behind Odin. Normally, even if Odin's hair fell off in clumps, he would not care. But today, the invasion of the frost giants in the arsenal was arranged by him. Of course, he had to pay special attention to all the small details around him to make sure there were no loopholes. Fortunately, the invading frost giants were killed by the destroyer. If there were any survivors, Loki would have to take action personally, because he couldn't let himself have any flaws. Even if the invading frost giants didn't know the mastermind behind the scenes, Loki couldn't leave any hidden dangers. And a white hair on Odin's head fell off naturally, which was trivial matter, but Loki noticed it. Loki was waiting for the white hair to fall to the ground, but suddenly, it was very sudden, the white hair suddenly disappeared. As the second prince, Loki, who is also a god, even rubbed his eyes in disbelief. Really disappeared? When did my father's hair become so powerful? It disappeared before it even fell to the ground. No, there's something strange. Loki immediately stretched out his hand towards the void, as if he wanted to catch the goddess Hermione. But the goddess Hermione was more slippery than a loach. How could he catch her? Moreover, Loki didn't know what caused Odin's hair to disappear suddenly. "Loki, what are you doing?" Odin asked curiously when he saw Loki's strange behavior. Loki was speechless. Of course, he had no way to explain that a hair of yours had just fallen, but it disappeared magically without falling to the ground. At this time, if he said this, others would think that he had a problem with his IQ. "No, nothing. I'm curious about how the frost giants invaded," Odin said seriously. "This matter will be investigated thoroughly." Investigate? The goddess Hermione, who completed the task and put Odin's hair into the experimental test tube, couldn't help but sneer. When it comes to investigating and solving cases, Marvel and Hogwarts are the same. They lack a famous detective. Any case cannot be solved without going through the plot of several movies, unless the goddess Hermione helps them. Chapter 394, Three Warriors of Asgard. Although Miss Hermione is a savior, she will not help others for free. Sympathy is a virtue, but it is unnecessary to be overly compassionate. Everything must have a degree. Too much is as bad as too little. Sure enough, the powder keg Thor did not kill the enemy to vent his anger. He was so angry that he could not vent his anger. He immediately jumped up and said, "The frost giants are too bold. We must go to war and teach them a lesson." Odin, the old man, looked dissatisfied. He seemed to have forgotten that he was more irritable than Thor when he was young, and millions of people were killed in anger. When he got old, his mind became completely stable. He was extremely repulsive to any behavior related to war. It cannot be said that Odin was not wrong. Without war, the people of Asgard would naturally be happy, but how long can this happiness last? Born in adversity and die in comfort. This is an unchanging truth since ancient times. Although the purpose of the movie is to educate Thor from an irritable young man to a calm middle-aged man with boundless love, however, Miss Hermione personally feels that although Thor is a bit reckless, what he did is absolutely right. On the contrary, Odin is too cautious. Stability is not achieved by blindly tolerating, escaping, and living in frustration. Stability should be achieved through blood and tears, with knives and guns. If Odin had not left millions of corpses, fought on the battlefield, and frightened his enemies, there would not be the peaceful and prosperous Asgard today. Miss Hermione does not want to participate in the big truths. After all, it has nothing to do with her. She doesn't care about the survival of Asgard. It's just a small story in the long river of history. She traveled through time and space to see it. Even if she turned the tide and changed her fate, what's the use? 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, 1,000,000 years later, there will be more historical stories. Could it be that Ms. Hermione Granger is guarding Asgard? Even Odin, the father of the gods, is old and powerless. What virtue can Hermione have? Besides, she doesn't have the mind to do that. Nonsense. Odin's eyes revealed his disappointment with the eldest prince Thor. "We have a truce agreement with the frost giants. How can we just go to war?" Odin is old and he doesn't want to fight. If he were younger, you would see. The frost giants dared to invade our Asgard. Isn't this reason enough? Thor was also full of blood. You just say yourself, you still have to evaluate your father later. Father, you are getting more and more timid. Humphrey. Odin was directly angry. "I am old, but don't I want face?" Thor, "I found that I was wrong. I thought you were calm enough to take over Asgard on my behalf and lead Asgard to live a peaceful and happy life." Thor, "You are not qualified to ascend the throne and become king at present." After saying that, Odin just threw his sleeves and left. Trouble comes from the mouth, so you can't say anything carelessly. Thor and Odin are both at fault. Thor is indeed not of good character, otherwise he would not have criticized his father before he ascended the throne. In this regard, the second prince Loki is much better than Thor. And Odin is also at fault. The education of the prince is one of the most important things for the royal family. Thor was not educated well, and Odin is absolutely responsible. And he is also ruthless in his words. He is too self-righteous. He has been the father of the gods for too long. The 9 realms all listen to him. He thinks that everything he says and does is right. This self-righteous illusion is also outrageous. But there is no way. No one is perfect. Even Miss Hermione, who was watching the show on the side, dared not guarantee that she had no faults. People and gods all have shortcomings, none of them are perfect. It depends on the size of the imperfections and how big the impact is. Humphrey, Thor became even angrier. He has a high martial arts value. He dances with Thor's hammer with great vigor. He can be said to be the well-deserved first warrior in Asgard. Now that the frost giants have invaded the arsenal, his father, the father of the gods, doesn't say a word. He just talks about a truce agreement. Asgard, who is high above everyone else, does pay attention to this armistice agreement. But what about the ambitious frost giants? They have even stolen the weapons storage in the back garden. How can this be tolerated? Thor said that his father has become timid and smaller. Is this wrong? Thor returned to his palace, and he was so angry that he overturned the table and smashed things to vent his emotions. Loki couldn't find the goddess Hermione, but his plan had just begun. Of course, he would not give up his wonderful plan because of a little abnormality. Thor did not have a strong desire to ascend the throne as king. He would rather be the strongest warrior, fight on the battlefield all his life, and expand Asgard's ruling territory. Moreover, he has always been the eldest prince, and in his simple subconscious mind, he feels that the king of Asgard will be his sooner or later, as if it is destined. It is the same whether he ascends the throne early or late. The second prince Loki disguised himself very well and never made Thor feel threatened by the throne. Brother, it's useless to lose your temper like this. You should go to father and apologize immediately. Loki said this deliberately. Thor was so angry that he blew his beard and glared. Let me apologize to him? No way. I've had enough. He is the one who goes to war every time. If it weren't for his orders, the territory of Asgard would have expanded more than 10 times. Loki, as a peacemaker, said, "Father is not wrong. After years of war, the people of Asgard are now suffering. Father doesn't want his people to shed blood and tears because of war again." Thor was silent. Although he was reckless, he was not stupid. How could he not know the reasons given by his younger brother Loki? Thor said sadly, "But if we don't fight them, they will invade us." "Brother, there is nothing we can do about it." This bad-hearted Loki immediately changed his attitude 180 degrees. Although he was still handsome, his evil villain charm began to soar. "Brother, you are right. Frost giants have been our Asgard's formidable enemies since ancient times. If they are not eliminated one day, it will be enough to make people sleepless and eat uneasy. They dared to make trouble on the big day when my brother ascended the throne. Once, they dared to do it again." Thor's anger was completely ignited by Loki, and the huge wine table in front of him was directly kicked to pieces by him. "We must teach them a lesson." Loki's conspiracy succeeded, and he pretended that we were one of us and said, "Let's go together." Thor has 4 fierce generals under his command, all of whom are warriors who can fight 1 against 100. They are the 3 warriors of Asgard, Volstagg, Hogun, Fandral, and Sif, among whom Sif is a female warrior. The 4 of them are loyal to Thor, both subordinates and good friends. On the contrary, the second prince Loki is hypocritical, and he has no friends around him. Usually he seems to have a very good relationship with the eldest prince Thor, but in fact, he is the one who pits Thor the most. The 4 warriors under Thor didn't like Loki, but because he was the second prince, they couldn't say much. At this moment, the 4 warriors saw that Thor was provoked by the second prince Loki to attack the frost giants with just a few words. Reason told them that it was not simple, because the frost giants were so powerful. If they were not handled carefully, the consequences would be serious. The subordinates wanted to persuade the eldest prince Thor to calm down, at least let Odin, the father of the gods, make the final decision on major decisions. Odin had always advocated peace in his old age, so it was useless to ask him. Thor directly brought up the brotherhood and said, "If you still recognize me, Thor, you must follow me without hesitation, even if you die on the battlefield." Having said this, the 4 subordinates immediately pledged their loyalty. Subordinates, swear to follow. The insidious Loki, he achieved his goal. Chapter 395 Rainbow Bridge Heimdall. Goddess Hermione Granger was hiding nearby, not much of a presence, and the system options were not very powerful, not even releasing new tasks. New tasks should be provided at this time, left hooks and right hooks, holding the opponent's neck with both arms, and then kicking the opponent's stomach with both feet. That's right, the fighting style of a muscle kangaroo. Loki, this villain, deserves a beating. The villains in the previous Marvel movies were all positive villains, but this Loki was a sneak attack. Although there were no system option tasks, Hermione followed over to watch the fun, and she had to be more active. Thor was furious, leading his brothers, holding his head high, walking with a domineering and uncaring step, and directly came to Heimdall through the Rainbow Bridge. Although the power of Asgard in the movie is quite low, the character creation is indeed good. Odin feels like a priest, although a little old. Thor also looks like what Thor should look like. Not to mention Loki, the god of evil. Heimdall, the god who guards the Rainbow Bridge, has the Eye of Heimdall, which can sometimes see through the entire Milky Way, a bit like the clairvoyance in Journey to the West. Heimdall's weapon is the Guardian Sword, made of bolter steel. This sword is very powerful. Through an elliptical teleportation array device at the end of the Rainbow Bridge, the sword can be inserted to any place in the 9 realms. In theory, it is much more powerful than Miss Hermione's door key. You only need the spatial coordinates to teleport. Miss Hermione's door key must go to the side in advance, then leave a teleportation key, and finally teleport through the door key in her hand. But it is convenient. Miss Hermione can teleport whenever she wants as long as she goes to the site in advance. The Rainbow Bridge teleport station requires the Guardian Sword in Heimdall's hand, as well as this huge teleportation device. Once this device is destroyed, it will become very difficult to repair it. Heimdall holds the Guardian Sword in his hand and sticks here all year round. If there were no villains inside Asgard, with him, the enemy would not be able to sneak in without anyone noticing. But that's how it is in the Marvel Universe. There has never been an absolutely invincible existence, and there has never been anything that is foolproof. Let me talk to him. Loki wanted to show off his eloquence. After all, Heimdall only listens to Odin, the king of Asgard. It is not easy for ordinary people to get his permission to teleport through the Rainbow Bridge. Thor shouted directly, "Heimdall, in the name of Thor, I order you to open the teleportation array immediately." Heimdall was a little embarrassed. Looking at Thor's posture, it was obvious that he was going to fight. However, Odin did not have such an intention recently. "Hurry up, don't delay our time." Thor was angry. Heimdall, as the guardian of the Asgard god realm, allowed the enemies of the frost giants to sneak into the armory during Thor's coronation ceremony. This was Heimdall's dereliction of duty. Heimdall did not hesitate and asked, "Where are you going?" Loki wanted to say a few words, but it seemed that he didn't need to do anything. Jotunheim. Thor uttered the name of this place coldly. This is one of the 9 worlds with an extremely harsh environment, full of rocks, cliffs, ice fields and wild forests. This is where the frost giants live. Heimdall took out his sword and placed it in the teleportation container. There was a flash of lightning and thunder, and the huge teleportation device began to rotate, and a sharp point pointed to a coordinate. Hermione joined in the fun, and her system options popped up a dialog box. Option 1, go along to join in the fun, and collect some frost giant bones for research. Completing the task will reward basic attributes +1. Option 2, secretly use the door key to teleport the villain Loki to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, shocking him. Completing the task will reward 1 Little Red Riding Hood. Option 3, does Heimdall's eyes really have the ability to see through everything? Dig it out and study it. Completing the task will reward 1 bottle of super eye drops. The 3 options this time are a bit like the previous ones, varied and different. Teleport Loki to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. He will probably become good friends with Voldemort, and he will have nothing to do with the Marvel world from now on. However, forget it, he is a nuisance. Let him stay in Marvel. Besides, the reward is too casual. I don't know what this Little Red Riding Hood has to do with Grandma Wolf. Option 3 is a bit interesting. Super eye drops. I don't know what it is, and Heimdall's eyes are indeed worth researching. If they are fused with the Sharingan, will new products be produced? However, digging them out directly is not good. This doesn't seem like something a decent person would do. Let's wait until Heimdall dies. Then there is only option 1 left. The system understands Hermione very well and knows what she wants to do. Since Miss Hermione has become stronger and stronger, her hobbies have changed from saving her life, staying alive, eating and drinking to eating and drinking, researching, and improving. There must be progress and gains to feel the meaning of hard work. And research comes with upgrading. On the one hand, it was given directly by the system, and on the other hand, it was also due to the excellent quality of Miss Hermione, who was diligent and studious. As long as there is research value, you can collect it. Maybe it is not needed now, but when the time is right, it will definitely be useful. The teleportation array from the Rainbow Bridge of Asgard was opened, and a lightning-carrying energy enveloped the gods and warriors present, and then threw a beam of light on the teleportation array. They were teleported instantly. This feeling is very exciting. Miss Hermione has traveled through time many times, but this is the first time she has experienced this kind of lightning-fast experience. She has used the door key many times to travel through time, and the door key is space magic. The concept is like opening from this space and then coming out from another space. In fact, there is no substantial process in between. The teleportation in Asgard is different. It is more like a super high-speed train. The speed is so fast that it can be comparable to light. It is transmitted directly from space in a straight line through the beam train. So during the process, you can even see the stars in the universe around you. These are 2 different ways of teleportation. After landing, several people have arrived in Jotunheim, a world ruled by frost giants. The surroundings are barren and desolate, and not even a green plant can be seen. A rough world composed of cold and black stones. As a time traveler, Miss Hermione's imagination has always been based on practical perspectives. For example, when she was at Hogwarts, she found that the flying broom was uncomfortable to sit on and not beautiful. Now that she has been teleported from Asgard to the territory of the frost giants, which is so barren, Miss Hermione is very curious. How did the frost giants here survive? What do they eat? What do they drink? Can they grow meat by drinking northwest wind every day? Miss Hermione didn't have time to think. Thor brought 4 men and Loki, a total of 6 people, to such a desolate world. Everyone began to be alert. Although Thor was a reckless man when he was angry, he also knew the danger at the critical moment. Behind the black rocks around, some ugly-looking frost giants began to surround them, and there were quite a few of them. Heimdall on the Rainbow Bridge was quite good at teleporting. Knowing that the eldest prince wanted to fight and kill the enemy, he teleported directly to the enemy's nest. So thoughtful. The densely packed enemies make one scalp tingle. Chapter 396. The Invincible Thor. Heimdall is very reliable in doing things. He knows what Thor wants to do and does it in one step. There is no need to look for him in the wasteland of Jotunheim. He can directly start a head-on confrontation with the enemy. However, seeing that there are too many enemies, Thor is a little scared. He did not immediately pick up Thor's hammer and rush up to fight. Loki was calm on the surface, but he was quite dissatisfied in his heart. "Brother, you are not good enough. You were so angry in Asgard, but you didn't dare to start fighting when you were teleported to Jotunheim." The leader of the frost giants came out. He didn't look like a giant. He was just a little taller than an ordinary person. He didn't have the visual impact of Attack on Titan. "We have a truce covenant. I hope the prince will not act impulsively." The leader of the frost giants is called Laufey. Although he looks awesome, he doesn't have much appearance. Today may be his most impressive time. Thor is already very strong, but he does look shorter than Laufey. "You invaded Asgard and ruined my coronation ceremony. If you don't give us an explanation, we will not give up today." Thor was quite tough and was not frightened by Laufey and his densely packed frost giants. "I have nothing to say to you. Let Odin do it." Laufey deliberately angered Thor. Although he did not look at Loki, they actually had a special deal in private. Laufey's IQ was not good, so he was played by Loki. "What do you think I am, Thor?" Thor's anger began to accumulate, and veins popped out on his strong arms. As the leader of the frost giants, Laufey is basically a humanoid monster except that he looks like a human. Be a little princess. A little princess loses her temper, and should go back honestly. Loki finally laughed in his heart, but his acting skills were first class, and he pretended to be bad on the surface. It's over. As expected, Thor's temper was intolerable. He swung the Thor's hammer in his hand and hit Laufey with it. With this hammer, even steel would be shattered. As the leader of the Frost Giants, Laufey couldn't bear it and was hammered away. Fortunately, as the leader, his defense was still good, and he was not killed by Thor's hammer. His body flew backwards and hit the black rocks, and the broken stones flew. A large number of Frost Giants around, like a group of low-IQ humanoid monsters, rushed up with strange cries. Because of the large number, even if Miss Hermione was invisible, in order to avoid being hit, she still flew up directly and watched the battle in midair. And Thor, his 4 men, and Gurki below all started fighting. The moves of the few people were different, but the coordination was not very good. They fought in different places, and there was no coordination. Thor was undoubtedly the strongest existence. Under his Thor's hammer, no matter how many Frost Giants there were, they were just chickens and dogs. The Frost Giants were beaten to pieces, but they still rushed forward fiercely without caring about their lives. There were also different types of warriors among the Frost Giants, and some of them were 3 times larger than ordinary people, but they still couldn't withstand Thor's hammer. Miss Hermione was not idle either. She began to collect the bones of the Frost Giants and collected some blood. Anyway, she didn't kill the people. She was just a scientific researcher and didn't feel guilty. Just now, when she collected the bones of a canine monster, she received a system prompt. Congratulations on completing the Option 1 task. Reward basic attributes +1, because both sides of the battle were not considered human. One was the God Clan and the other was the Frost Giant Clan. Miss Hermione Granger didn't take sides and didn't help either side. As for the protagonist Thor, he was powerful and invincible. No matter how many enemies there were, they couldn't hurt him. He also needed Hermione to help him. It's better to wait until he is in trouble, and then Miss Hermione will take action. Boom. On the cold ground frozen by ice, the bodies of the Frost Giants are increasing, and the warriors from Asgard can no longer bear it. One of the Frost Giants who can attack with magic directly stabbed an Asgard warrior with ice. Thor, we have to retreat. Thor was also panting in the battle. Although his divine power was not exhausted, it was obvious that his companions were no longer able to do it. This is a serious drag. If Miss Hermione was Thor, she would come to trouble alone without a burden. Okay, start retreating. Thor still values his friends very much, and he can't let his subordinates and friends die in vain in Jotunheim. They fought and retreated. Thor was the most powerful and stayed behind. However, a terrifying monster that looked extremely ferocious and had a tooth as big as a person drilled out directly from the ground and quickly opened its bloody mouth to bite Thor's 4 fleeing men. Not to mention, even Miss Hermione was shocked. The main reason is that this monster is too big and the visual impact is too terrifying. Seeing that Thor's men were about to be swallowed up, at the critical moment, Thor roared. His whole body was filled with lightning, and he swung his hammer, which was also covered with lightning. Whoosh, it flew out. The hammer was carrying lightning, and it was very fast, and it directly attacked the mouth of the Abyss Beast first. Boom. Thor's hammer penetrated the big mouth of the Abyss Beast without any hindrance, and the hammer flew out from the back. The Abyss Beast didn't even have the chance to wail, and it died directly. It turns out that you have a lot of fat, but you are so weak. When many Frost Giants saw Thor throwing out his weapons, they knew that this was the best time to kill Thor, and they immediately attacked Thor like a flood, vowing to cut Thor into pieces. However, the Frost Giants didn't expect Thor's hammer to be so powerful, and it would come back by itself. As soon as Thor stretched out his hand, the hammer of Thor flew quickly with the element of lightning. Thor quickly flew into the air. As he kept spinning the hammer in his hand, he was about to release his ultimate move. The sky of Jotunheim began to be covered with dark clouds. A terrible tornado formed around Thor, and the inside of the tornado was full of dense lightning. Hey, Thor, holding Thor's hammer, fell from the sky. This move was no weaker than the Tathagata palm that Miss Hermione had practiced for many years. Boom. The earth cracked directly. The tornado's critical strike, plus the terrifying lightning attack, drove away countless frost giants around. It was like the power of a small atomic bomb. Unstoppable, but even so, the dense frost giants still surrounded him. Thor was powerful, but there were so many frost giants. Consume all the warriors of Asgard to death. Loki also pretended to be exhausted. The worst were the 4 warriors. They were indeed experienced in many battles, but the enemy was as many as 1,000,000, and it was not a battle of the same order of magnitude at all. At this most critical moment, a dazzling golden light fell from the sky. The man rode a war horse, holding the glittering spear of eternity. With just one strike, he exploded with the power of a nuclear bomb. Boom! It was like the arrival of a king, which completely stunned the frost giants, especially the older generation of frost giants, who were shocked and said, "Odin, it's the father of the gods, Odin." Odin's name is still louder, and it is more deterrent than Thor. Most of the frost giants were terrified. Only the leader of the frost giants, Laufey, had blood on his mouth, and his eyes were full of hatred for Odin and his son, regarding them as a thorn in his eyes. Chapter 397 Reward. High replica Thor's hammer. Odin did not dare to fight. He was old, and his eldest son was naughty and caused trouble. Naturally, he had to deal with it himself. Loki also discovered a secret in this battle. The frost giants had a very strong control over ice. Thor's men were all frostbitten, but he did not feel cold. Even if he touched the enemy personally, his hands did not feel any discomfort. This made Loki begin to doubt his bloodline for the first time. Is he a bastard? Odin had a child with another woman outside, so there is another race's blood flowing into his body. The situation is urgent, and Loki can't think of an answer. Miss Hermione's system immediately gave a new prompt. Option 1. Odin came here, but he didn't stay for a meal before leaving. Use powerful magic to change the special delivery coordinates so that Odin, Thor and others cannot be teleported back through the Rainbow Bridge. Complete the task to reward the exclusive attribute, Destruction, +1. Option 2. The leader of the Frost Giants is still too weak and needs to be strengthened. Use the materials you have collected so far to upgrade Laufey's strength. Completing the task will reward you with the exclusive attribute, Experiment, +1. Option 3. Just follow and watch. There is no need to take action. Completing the task will reward you with the exclusive attribute, Casualness, +1. The rewards for the exclusive attributes that Miss Hermione does not value are increasing, but Hermione does not want to do options 1 and 2 at all, so she can only continue with option 3. Without Miss Hermione's help, Odin, his 2 sons, and Thor's 4 men quickly passed through the teleportation array of the Rainbow Bridge, and with the help of Heimdall, they were teleported directly from Jotunheim back to Asgard. Although there is no green vegetation in the world of Asgard, it is magnificent everywhere. Even the air is different. Congratulations on completing the option 3 task, and reward you with the exclusive attribute, Casualness, +1. Miss Hermione is still very strong. She has been with him all the way, but no one has noticed her. Miss Hermione also opened her attribute panel. Magic +90, Health +80, Loki +68, Agility +79, Defense +76, Strength +72, Stealth +69, Pretty +9, Charm +9, Figure +9, Skin +9, Wisdom +9, Gentleness +1, Soul +1, Optimism +1, Teasing +2, Good Guy +1, Painter +1, Performance +1, Decisiveness +1, Silence +1, Quietness +1, Professional +1, Courage +1, Luck +1, Casualness +1. Look, the attributes behind are all +1. In fact, they are all exclusive attribute rewards, and they are all attributes that Miss Hermione usually doesn't pay attention to. +1 point doesn't feel obvious. In short, the overall strength is stronger, not specific to a certain point. In the past, Hermione would have to check for a long time when she added a little point. After all, it was earned by her hard work in the mission. But now, perhaps because she has looked at it for too long, it's just like that. Only when they are in a whim will they open it and take a look. Asgard is destined to be very lively within the royal family today. Loki is the best instigator, but Odin has no criticism at all, only reprimanding the eldest prince Thor. Thor, you disappoint me so much. Do you know how much trouble you have caused? Thor did not realize that this was a problem at all. He stubbornly contradicted his father. I don't think I did anything wrong. Even if it happens again, I will smash Jotunheim to pieces. Asshole. The disappointment in Odin's eyes was extreme. If he was not too old and unable to do it, he really planned to have another child. The eldest prince was useless, but he had no choice. In the movie universe, he, Odin, only had Thor as his biological son. Even if he wanted to give him up, he had to make a great determination. Thor, you don't repent. Because of your impulse, you destroyed the peace treaty between Asgard and the Frost Giants. Now, I will take back your divine power and demote you to the human world. Reflect on yourself. When you know you are wrong, you can come back. The beautiful Miss Hermione, as a bystander, felt that Odin's approach was correct. To educate a proud son, you should directly deprive him of all his power and let him experience the feeling of an ordinary person. However, Odin also has his shortcomings. That is, he underestimated the intelligence and means of Loki, the second prince. No, you can't do this to me. Although Thor had a bad temper at this stage, he was not to the point of patricide. He could only use words to refute Odin's decision. But Odin was also a ruthless person. He did what he said without hesitation. He stretched out his hand and took back Odin's Thor's hammer. Although Thor's hammer had been with Thor on the battlefield for many years, Odin, as the father of the gods, should not take this treasure too easily. Then, Odin took Thor's hammer and tapped Thor's body. His indestructible armor immediately disappeared like melted chocolate. Loki on the side did not expect that his conspiracy would go so smoothly. No, Thor finally felt his father's determination. He wanted to kill his son, Heimdall. Odin said, and Heimdall immediately understood what Odin meant. He held the sword of protection and stabbed at the teleportation array. In an instant, lightning and thunder flashed, and the huge teleportation array began to operate. Thor had lost his divine power and was thrown out of the teleportation array. Thor's men begged for mercy, but Odin ignored them. He held Thor's hammer in his hand and used powerful magic with words. When Thor really becomes a responsible god, you can help it. The father still kept a trick. Then he threw Thor's hammer directly into the teleportation array, and disappeared in Asgard with the teleportation array. Hermione watched the fun from the sidelines, not intending to help at all. Although Odin was old, his strength should not be underestimated. I'm afraid that Miss Hermione can only fight this Odin on equal terms at most, so she didn't want to take action, let alone take risks. As the savior of Marvel, Miss Hermione naturally wanted to see Thor, who was demoted to the mortal world, so she immediately set off and left Asgard. Before leaving, she took some delicious food. On Marvel Earth, there was an endless desert. The teleportation array of the Rainbow Bridge was relatively gentle. At such a long distance, a treasure like Thor's hammer fell down, but it didn't smash through the earth. It didn't smash a big rift on the earth. It was just a not too deep pit. Option 1. Quickly run to the vicinity of Thor's hammer to check in, and complete the task to reward a super weapon high imitation treasure, Thor's hammer. Option 2. Go and see if Thor died from the fall. If he didn't die, go and make up for it. Completing the task will reward you with the exclusive attribute, Death, +1. Option 3. It's time to occupy Asgard, replace Odin, and ascend the throne yourself. Completing the task will reward you with a throne made of gold. All three options are interesting. Without a doubt, option 1 is the most valuable. Although the reward is a high imitation Thor's hammer, and Miss Hermione is not short of weapons, the more the better, and no one will dislike having too many treasures. Hermione didn't care whether Thor fell to death or not, and it is highly likely that he would not fall to death, because she basically did not do anything out of the ordinary in Asgard. There would naturally be no terrible butterfly effect. If she made too much noise in Asgard, then it is highly likely that Thor would be thrown to death alive. After all, Iron Man once fell to death alive. Chapter 398. I am the female thunder god. Signing in and punching the card is a very simple task. The innocent and romantic Miss Hermione Granger even raised her scissors hand next to Thor's hammer and took a selfie to punch the card. Congratulations on completing option 1 task, and get a high imitation Thor's hammer as a reward. Miss Hermione has accumulated a lot of treasures and secrets. Time converter, Tatha got a palm sword art billions of times to draw the sword to eat tiger fish knife. High frequency arc upgraded version, door keys, 12, Sharingan contact lens, evolution, kaleidoscope Sharingan, nano Iron Man armor, super space-time gate pain mask Magneto's ability, silver bracelet, high imitation Thor's hammer. In addition, there are ominous signs, witch cloaks, invisibility cloaks, etc. Miss Hermione took out the reward she just got in the desert, a high imitation Thor's hammer. It's really a high imitation version rewarded by the system. Hermione only took a look and sighed sincerely. The appearance is exactly the same as the original Thor's hammer, and the key is that there are emoticons on the surface of the hammer. Are you kidding me? The system is too funny. Miss Hermione almost forgot that her system also has a funny side. On the cross-section of the high imitation Thor's hammer, the emoticons will show different appearances as the sun shines on it. It looks funny and hilarious. Hermione was also angry and laughed. She wanted to transform into a handsome female Thor holding Thor's hammer, but now it's good. With one hammer, a huge emoticon attack with lightning attributes, even if the power is invincible. This is too funny. Hermione has also tried lightning magic, but it is indeed not as good as Thor's hammer. With a little magic power, Thor's hammer immediately released several times and dozens of times the lightning attack, and the surrounding land was squeaked by lightning. The power of this high imitation Thor's hammer is not discounted at all. It is this trademark that is really a headache. In the thunder and lightning, a huge emoticon projection appears. If the force is too strong, this huge emoticon can be printed directly on the ground. Forget it. I'll use this high imitation Thor's hammer when I have the chance. Otherwise, when fighting the enemy head-on, it is estimated that the emoticon on Thor's hammer will make the enemy laugh to death before killing him first. The seriousness of the battle is gone in an instant. Hermione came to Thor's side. As expected of the male protagonist, she had good luck. She had just been demoted from the Asgard god realm to the mortal world and met a beautiful girl, Jane Foster. The name is really simple. Jane fits the image of a general movie heroine very well. She has a good appearance and her profession is also quite high-end, astronomer. They are a group of 3 people, with a kind old professor and a sister who should not be her biological sister. The 3 of them did not sleep at night, and I don't know how they solved the problem of money for food. Maybe the old professor has a pension. According to their observations during the day, they calculated that there would be an anomaly tonight, so they drove to the desert at night to wait for the natural anomaly. At this time, Thor, the god of thunder who was deprived of his divine power, fell from the sky. With the protection of the Rainbow Bridge teleportation array, Thor was not smashed into a pulp on the spot due to the strong gravity of the earth when he landed on the ground. Boom. Dust and smoke rose up, and Jane Foster and her colleagues, members of the Astronomical Observation civilian group who were waiting for the natural anomaly in the car, ran over together. Is it a meteor? Jane's sister exclaimed. The old professor had a serious face. When he just fell from the sky, there was a terrible aurora, which looked extraordinary, but the huge reaction caused by landing on the ground was not too big. Otherwise, the terrible shockwave caused by the meteorite falling to the ground alone would be enough to blow their car away directly. It's actually a person. He shouldn't have fallen from the sky. As an astronomer, he naturally wouldn't believe this hypothesis. It is estimated that it would be difficult for ordinary people to find a complete piece of meat scraps when they fall from that height. Not to mention, Thor, who stood up with his head shaking, had no scars on his body. Even without the Thor armor, his snow-white muscles were still very eye-catching. Are you okay? Jane immediately realized that the man in front of her might have been robbed, so he was stripped naked and abandoned in this desert. Get out of here. Do you know who I am? Thor roared at Jane, looking like a drunk thug. After all, Thor's body is really not weak, and he looks very deterrent. The old professor was worried that Jane would be hurt, so he quickly pulled her aside. Thor was very angry. He was demoted to the mortal world and was confused at the moment. He asked unfriendlily, "Where is this?" Thor suddenly screamed, and saw Jane Foster's sister behind him attacking him with an electric shock gun. "You mortal! Dare you attack me, and it's electric shock? Don't you know I'm Thor?" When Thor was about to teach this group of ignorant humans a lesson, he found that he, who had lost his divine power, could not withstand the ordinary human electric shock gun. Under the high-voltage electric shock, Thor was directly shocked and fainted. "It's really embarrassing," Miss Hermione commented. At the same time, her system options also popped up. Option 1. Help Thor. He needs help. Complete the task and reward 1 box of building blocks. Option 2. Use magic to control Jane. Let her subconsciously send Thor to the hospital for treatment. Complete the task and reward 1 authentic salted fish. Option 3. Use the door key to take Thor back to Asgard. Complete the task and reward 1 box of firecrackers. The weird option task. Miss Hermione did not think much, just chose 2. Gently waving her arms, the power of magic successfully invaded Jane. Miss Hermione's magic is profound, and the person involved did not realize that his consciousness and brain had been controlled. This feeling is like having a crush on someone. Although you don't want to be a licker, your brain is uncontrollably thinking about the person you like. Normal people would think that an uncontrolled brain is a natural behavior. But in fact, at this moment, the brain of the heroine Jane Foster is controlled by Miss Hermione Granger. She wants to take Thor to the hospital, which is not her own idea at all, but is controlled by God, Hermione, but she can't detect it at all and thinks it is her own idea. "Let's send him to the hospital." Although the old professor doubted Thor's identity, even with the protection of the Rainbow Bridge, when Thor fell, there was still a big hole on the ground. The old professor has studied astronomy all his life, and he really can't imagine that this scene would be caused by a person falling. The only explanation is that this place is like this, and Thor happened to be abandoned here. But this is difficult to explain. What is the matter with the natural phenomenon just now? Everyone got on the car, and Jane's sister explained, "I just shot him in self-defense. I was worried that this strange man might hurt you, so I shot him. It was good enough that he didn't use a real gun. The stun gun only knocked Thor unconscious." "Shame on Thor. We don't blame you." Jane could only say this. Thor woke up as soon as he received treatment at the hospital. Although he had lost his divine power, his physique was still much stronger than that of an ordinary person. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 399. Krum invites Hermione to dance. Thor didn't know what these people were doing. He was very upset and started to yell, "How dare you be so rude to the son of Odin?" The doctors and nurses were confused. Is he a mental patient? There aren't many mental patients with such a muscular body these days. Thor was given an injection in the neck, and the next moment, Thor fell asleep. This demoted god was really a coward. As expected, Miss Hermione knew that her system options would not be silent. Option 1. Give Thor a little more dosage and let him die in a medical accident. Complete the task and reward 1 souvenir of the god's fall. Option 2. Thor is too pitiful. As a god with strength comparable to Odin, I will give Thor some power so that he won't be so aggrieved. Complete the task and reward 1 technology laboratory. Option 3. If you have free time, why not go and have a cup of milk tea? Isn't it delicious? Complete the task and reward 1 big hamburger. Hermione didn't hesitate and chose to drink milk tea. After completing the task, she was rewarded with a hamburger, which Miss Hermione ate on the spot. Only after eating can you have strength. It has been a while since I came to Marvel to watch Thor's performance. Since there is no important task here, Miss Hermione decided to travel back to Hogwarts. The shuttle between the two worlds is inseparable from the time and space gate. With the help of the magic of the door key, Hermione came to the dark forest outside Hogwarts. As soon as she landed, she picked up a good thing, a sack of gold. I don't know which gold digger dropped it, Hermione's good luck was shown again. There is no fear of too much gold. Hermione picked it up directly. Hogwarts is very lively. Since Professor McGonagall and Ron danced at dance, everyone began to look forward to the Christmas ball. Even Neville, whose IQ seems silly. In the original play, Neville sneaked into the house and actually made an appointment with Ginny Weasley, Ron's sister and the future wife of Harry Potter. However, it is unknown whether he can make a successful appointment here. In the original series, not many people asked Miss Hermione Granger out. In the original series, she hoped that the first person to ask her out would be Harry or Ron. In the original series, Miss Hermione showed her first love at this time, and repeatedly showed alternative emotions to Harry. Unfortunately, Harry in the original series did not cherish her. Instead, he fell in love with a girl named Caillou, and even in a snowy tower, he wanted to ask her out, but unfortunately, she had already been asked out. Girls are rare resources. If you strike first, you will be strong. If you strike later, you will get nothing. Harry here will definitely not be so shameless as to ask Caillou out again. Harry and Ron here are the same. The person they want to ask out the most is Miss Hermione Granger, but unfortunately, neither of them has the courage, because they all know that they may be rejected by Miss Hermione, because Hermione doesn't like boys to get too close to her. Hugging is completely a dream. Moreover, whether Miss Hermione agrees to Ron or Harry, the result will cause great mental damage to the other party, and they may be depressed for a long time. For this reason, both of them are very troubled. Since Hermione appeared in Hogwarts, she has been constantly rejecting the male classmates who invited her, especially Malfoy. I don't know where his confidence comes from. In the original movie, he didn't even appear in the Christmas ball. Malfoy was unwilling to give up. He stopped Miss Hermione Granger and asked, "Hermione, my feelings for you for so many years, even if you are a stone, you should be moved." Hermione answered ruthlessly, "If you don't like it, you don't like it. You don't have to make the same mistake again and again." Miss Hermione was still polite. If it were Marvel, perhaps Hermione would have made such a little villain disappear directly. Malfoy left disappointed. Hermione was a little surprised that the system didn't pop up a window. It seems that Malfoy really has no face. Sad. This year's Triwizard Tournament, there are many talents, and Malfoy has become a small fry. Even among the rich second generation, there are more people with more face than him. Malfoy had just walked a short distance when an extremely strong male classmate who was almost bald strode over. He was Krum, the most promising seed player in the Triwizard Tournament. In the original series, he was also a star-level wizard. Here, even though Miss Hermione did not participate in the Triwizard Tournament, her fame was no less than Krum's. "Hello, Ms. Granger." Miss Hermione was still a normal lady in Hogwarts, and she nodded. As expected, Krum was still very presentable, and the system options popped up directly. Option 1. Tell Krum directly that if he was planning to ask me to be your dance partner, then sorry, it's impossible. Complete the task and reward basic attribute +1. Option 2. Recommend a few girls to Krum, so that he can feel that there are many beautiful girls in Hogwarts besides himself. Complete the task and reward basic attribute +1. Option 3. After Krum said his next words, punch him directly to let him know how big the gap in strength between the two is. Complete the task and reward basic attribute +1. The three options have their own characteristics, but their rewards are the same. After comparing and considering, Hermione chose one, and she answered directly and politely, "Mr. Krum, if you are planning to ask me out as your dance partner, I may disappoint you because I already have one." As expected, Krum was disappointed when he heard Hermione's words. He finally mustered up the courage to ask out the most beautiful girl in Hogwarts, but the other party was too smart. He was rejected before he even opened his mouth to explain his intention. "Is that so? That's really a pity." Krum asked, "Can you let me know who the boy who asked you out first is?" Miss Hermione smiled very charmingly. She said, "Let's keep it secret for now. I'm afraid it will cause him some trouble." That's right. Although Miss Hermione Granger has always been low-key, her popularity is not low. If other men know about it, They will definitely be jealous and may even do some very irrational actions. After all, Miss Hermione's beauty is fully qualified to bring disaster to the country and the people. Then, I'll ask you out again when there is a chance in the future. Krum could only give himself a way out. Congratulations on completing the option 1 task. Reward basic attribute +1. In order to avoid meeting too many inviters along the way, Hermione directly put on the invisibility cloak like in the Marvel world, so that no one could see her, and naturally it was no longer a problem. Miss Hermione thought about it. After all, she was a student of Hogwarts, and she still had to participate in many things in person. If she could slack off like in Marvel, it would not be good. So, she came directly to Ginny Weasley. The little girl in the past was now a beautiful girl with a good figure. Ginny Weasley was originally beautiful. Following Ms. Hermione, Hermione was never a stingy person. She gave her beautiful clothes and jewelry, as well as various skincare products. Girls' skin should be well maintained, otherwise it will not appear to be moist and shiny. There were also many boys at the door of Ginny Weasley's female dormitory. Ginny Weasley did not show up, and her female classmates helped to reject them one by one, until Miss Hermione appeared. Hermione didn't waste any more time and asked directly, "Ginny, will you dance with me at the Christmas ball?" Chapter 400 Hermione, the prettiest girl in the room. "Do you want to dance too?" Miss Hermione actually wanted to say this, but she felt that if she said this, Ginny Weasley might not understand it, so it would be meaningless. Ginny Weasley was very excited. Her soft little body was trembling, and her big watery eyes looked at Ms. Hermione Granger in front of her with great obsession. At first, Ginny Weasley liked Harry Potter because Harry's legend was very famous, but since she met Miss Hermione Granger, she realized how superficial she was. As a girl, she was deeply attracted by Miss Hermione Granger's beauty, and she couldn't extricate herself after so many years. Even many boys confessed to her, and the first picture in her mind was Miss Hermione Granger's charming smile. So beautiful. There was no other girl as beautiful as Hermione Granger in the world. Today, it is a very bright day outside the window. Ginny Weasley felt like she was dreaming. Hermione, her favorite beautiful lady, had always been very kind to her, much better than her heartless brother Ron. She actually took the initiative to ask her to dance. At the dance, boys usually hugged girls and danced gracefully, romantic and ambiguous. It was estimated that there were very few girls dancing together. However, there was an exception, that is, Filch, the janitor of Hogwarts. He would definitely not be able to find a dance partner. At the Christmas ball, he would probably only be able to dance with his cat lady, but he was so obsessed with his cat, so he probably wouldn't mind. I agree. Ginny Weasley couldn't wait to answer. She had a lot of contact with Miss Hermione and understood what kind of extraordinary woman Hermione was. There was no need to ask too much, just answer. Hermione laughed. She stretched out her white little hand and pinched Ginny Weasley's round face and said with a smile, "Well, I've prepared a dress for you. You can wear it at the ball that day." Miss Hermione planned to dress up as a man that day. With her beauty, she would definitely be the most beautiful girl at the ball that day. Miss Hermione successfully found her dance partner. Harry, Ron and Neville started to have a headache. Finally, they came to the ball that night. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry was quite fashionable. They even paid for a band to perform live. The people who participated in the ball entered one by one. When Harry and Ron walked to the door, they were stopped by Professor McGonagall. "Harry, as a warrior contestant in the Triwizard Tournament, you will be the lead dancer in a while and dance in advance." Harry's eyes widened. Seeing Harry's surprised look, Professor McGonagall asked, "Didn't I inform you about this?" "No," Harry Potter answered helplessly. "Well, now you know. Go get ready." Harry's scalp was numb. He really didn't want to attend this ball. Professor McGonagall noticed Ron again. She asked, "Ron, your evening gown looks a little strange." Ron was embarrassed. This was sent by his mother. Ron didn't want to wear it, but Miss Hermione didn't give him a new dress. He could only wear a dress similar to the original one, and he was in a very bad mood. On the contrary, Ron's sister Miss Ginny Weasley, she was dressed very beautifully today. like a flower fairy, which opened the eyes of many male classmates. They didn't expect Ginny Weasley to be so charming when she dressed up. I should have asked her out earlier. Confident ordinary men. Do you think that Ginny Weasley here can be asked out as long as you ask? Ginny Weasley is looking forward to it, waiting for her white horse princess. Miss Hermione has planned to dress up as a woman. She has chosen the clothes, and even plans to solve the not-so-boyish side with magic transformation. But at this time, the task options that suddenly popped up were a bit scary. Option 1. Requires you to dance like a lead dancer at the ball. Dancing, splits, seductive, hot, the best in the audience. Completing the task will reward you with the exclusive attribute, Dance, +1. Option 2. Requires you to dress up the most beautifully in the audience, appear at the ball, and stun everyone. Completing the task will reward you with the exclusive attribute, Beauty, +1. Option 3. Requires you to temporarily change your dance partner and dance with Malfoy. Completing the task will reward you with the exclusive attribute, Change of Heart, +1. What made Ms. Hermione's scalp tingle was the live dance. In fact, she should have guessed that any task option related to dancing would definitely be related to dance, which was indispensable. And option 3, temporarily changing attention and becoming Malfoy's dance partner? This option was not surprising to Hermione, but if the male dance partner was replaced by Harry or Ron, Miss Hermione might have thought about it for a few seconds. But if it was Malfoy, she could just refuse it directly. It is said that women are ruthless. That depends on who you are with. For Harry and Ron, even though Hermione doesn't like boys getting close to her, since they have been good friends for many years, Hermione still thinks it's worth considering. As for Malfoy, is he worthy? So, after comprehensive consideration, Miss Hermione can only give up her original plan to dress up as a woman and become the most beautiful boy in the audience. It seems that I can only be the most beautiful girl in the audience tonight. Hermione, who has always been low-key, is still a little uncomfortable, to be honest. If it were a few years ago, Miss Hermione would definitely be cautious not to participate and try her best to avoid being noticed by others. I am like a snow-white flower in a cliff in a valley. I don't need to let outsiders know, I just need to bloom quietly. The main thing is safety. In that era, the magical world of Hogwarts was too dangerous for Miss Hermione. But now, her strength is comparable to Odin, the father of the gods, and she is also the savior of Marvel. The cautious mentality has not been put down. However, it is not necessary to be too low-key. Miss Hermione is already very famous. Many prominent people in Hogwarts will attend tonight. If Miss Hermione does not come or show up, it will cause everyone to speculate. So, Miss Hermione dressed up a little according to the system option requirements. Looking in the mirror, the beauty that makes people drool is really amazing. People ask beautiful girls if they will fall in love with themselves when they look in the mirror. The answer is not sure. The word love is too heavy and difficult to answer, but love is certain. If Miss Hermione can find a girl as good as herself in the world, she will definitely like it. At the ball, the excitement tonight is overflowing on the faces of every guest. In the original movie, Miss Hermione dressed up, which was enough to amaze everyone. Hermione here is as beautiful as a myth. Her usual low-key personality is finally no longer low-key tonight. According to the task requirements, she wore a beautiful dress and exquisite makeup. When Goddess Hermione appeared at the ball, the whole audience was instantly quiet, and even the band who sang at the top of their lungs was stunned. They all opened their mouths in surprise, their eyes completely drawn to what might be the most beautiful scene they have ever seen in their lives. Oh my God, Miss Hermione. How can she be so beautiful? As a girl, I am almost suffocated by her beauty. She is so beautiful, any adjectives of praise seem inadequate when applied to her. Even Headmaster Dumbledore, who was not interested in women, exclaimed, "This Miss Hermione Granger is as beautiful as a fairy. She is enchanting everyone." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.